JLo has made many enemies in her world, with many being those who work for her. They've leaked some awful details about her and shown just how horrible she is. Now, Gilly Liar had been a longtime assistant to JLo before she quit and went to work for Mariah Carey in 2013. It's been said that the main reason why she quit was because of JLo's boyfriend at the time, Casper Smart. Apparently, Casper was allowed to do whatever he wanted in the house, and this included him mistreating the staff members. That upset Gilly, a source told Radar Online. Casper always insisted that Jennifer's staff call him Mr. Smart, and even demanded that Gilly get him drinks. So it appears that JLo let her assistant get disrespected, which is just not okay at all, and it shows what kind of person she really is. Then there's the time when she got everyone to turn on her longtime makeup artist Scott Barnes. There had been a leak on JLo's team as they exposed to the press that JLo was planning on getting married to Mark Anthony. Now, JLo claimed that Scott was one of the employees who betrayed her, so she fired him and made everyone ignore him. The thing was, they never asked him about it though, they just fired him. Now, during an interview on the Jeff Probst show, he claimed that he didn't know anything about the wedding and wasn't the leak, but JLo's team still shunned him. Scott said, "Nobody would talk to me, it was like I had the plague." Then, when the truth came out that Scott did not leak the news or even know about the wedding ahead of time, he received a phone call from Jen, who Scott claimed said the following. It was like, "Hey, it was a big misunderstanding, you know we have a lot of stuff coming up and I really miss you, so let's just get back to work." Although Scott was very gracious about the whole thing, it appears that JLo did not apologize to him, and it's just crazy to me that he went back working for her and that no one put a stop to her behavior. Now, near the end of last year, Elon Musk was speaking on the Joe Rogan Experience when he began talking about JLo's criticism of the recently elected president and his remarks about Puerto Ricans. Elon then brought up JLo's personal history with Diddy as she dated him from 1999 to 2001. He said JLo was like his ex-girlfriend and now all of a sudden she's warning people about this person, but how many people did she warn about Diddy? Oh, zero. Maybe we shouldn't trust her opinion. He added people in the music industry had to know that Diddy was doing these things. Where's that accountability? They had to know. Now, Ojani Noah, JLo's ex-husband, claimed that she was involved in Diddy's freak-offs that came up in his federal indictment. "I'm not on the list," Ojani wrote on Instagram. To those people and media outlets asking if I ever went or participated in that piece of Diddy's freak-off parties, no and no, never. But my ex-wife, Jennifer Lopez, aka JLo, did. Ask her. But in a shocking turn of events, one of her past assistants has come to her defense. Thea D'Souza, who worked with JLo on the 2002 film Made in Manhattan, posted a statement on Threads that said, "If you knew Jennifer Lopez, if you ever worked with her like I did, or if you were close with people who are like family to her like I am, you would know she did not have any idea about Diddy. She barely drinks, she's not a partier, she isn't a good time girl, she's a workaholic who uplifts women, and who was charmed by him for a brief time in her life." Now, Thea emphasized that JLo does not deserve to be conflated with Diddy's shocking and criminal misdeeds. So Thea claims that JLo is innocent in all of this, but she's the only one who's spoken out. You see, JLo is refusing to speak about her ex Diddy. She walked out of an autograph signing at AFI Fest 2024 when someone in the crowd asked her if she had any comments about Diddy and the allegations. The US Mirror tabloid reported that the singer left immediately, despite fans' pleas that she stay. And don't expect her to say anything. In May, after video footage of Diddy hurting his ex-girlfriend Cassie Ventura was brought to light, JLo stayed silent. Now, many of Diddy's other exes have spoken out against him, but not JLo. Though tabloid sources claim that the Cassie footage disgusted her, JLo was silent on the subject and has stayed that way. Sources are saying that Jen is not going to address the accusations or take time to talk about them because it's not her story to tell. If an interviewer brought it up, she would cross that path as and when it happens, but she won't address it publicly and will not put herself in that conversation on purpose. purpose. Then there was the fact when J-Lo and Marc Anthony's twins needed nannies, J-Lo gave them a grueling schedule. Now normally people who make a lot of money, like J-Lo for example, have numerous people who help them with everyday tasks, especially childcare, as it can be so difficult. But Jennifer expected one nanny not only to take care of both twins, but to work 16-hour days, 7 days a week, as an insider told the National Enquirer. Now unsurprisingly, the first nanny she hired left after just a week of working for her. They hired her second nanny, who was wonderful with the twins, but she couldn't take working such long hours without a break, a source said. So then she quit after just a week as well. And yeah, I don't blame them for quitting. I mean, that schedule is just unreasonable. Then in 2022, a girl named Kyla posted a TikTok saying that her dad worked for a company that J-Lo would hire for drivers. But apparently he heard so many bad stories about the star that he never wanted to be her driver. It said that J-Lo does not allow her drivers to look or talk to her. She's also so strict that if the driver looks through the rearview mirror and makes eye contact with her, she will freak out. Not to mention that she has a crazy rule that her luggage cannot touch the ground. Now it appears that this story is real though, because one of J-Lo's former drivers sued her. Hakab Menokian claims he started driving for J-Lo and Marc Anthony in 2005. He said that the three of them had such a great bond that they convinced him to shut down his company and work exclusively as J-Lo's personal head of security and transportation. He claimed that J-Lo agreed to pay him more than $200,000 per year, but things went downhill in 2011. This is when Hakab claims he was forced to spend time with J-Lo's manager, Benny Medina. He claims that Benny hated him and even found a way to convince J-Lo to demote him, taking away his security responsibilities and making him J-Lo's LA driver, and that was it. Now he says that he was basically forced to resign and then sued J-Lo and Benny for unspecified damages. J-Lo then countersued him for extortion, but her suit was dismissed in December 2012. Now the two eventually settled on undisclosed terms, but that honestly just sounds like a horrible situation. And finally, one of J-Lo's backup singers, Julia Wang, posted on TikTok how horrible it was to work with the star. She said she was so mean to her backup singers. If you were pretty or if you were Latina, like game over, she hated you. Julia also said that J-Lo refused to talk or even look at any of the singers during their rehearsals, except for an occasional eye roll or scoff, which is just crazy. She acted like a bully. Can you imagine spending time with someone working in a closed setting every single day for months, and this person never even acknowledging you or acting like you exist? She asked. And honestly, no, I can't. That sounds like a horrible work environment. Now she also shared that J-Lo changes the way she acts when there are men present, and Julia added that she only treats the women poorly because she views them as competition. It seems like if you have anything to do with J-Lo, it would just be horrible. One of J-Lo's past assistants has come forward and addressed J-Lo's involvement in Diddy's crime ring. And let me tell you, it's not what you think at all. Thea D'Souza, who worked with J-Lo on the 2002 film Made in Manhattan, posted a statement on Threads recently that said, "If you knew Jennifer Lopez, if you ever worked with her like I did, or if you were close with people who are like family to her like I am, you would know she did not have any idea about Diddy. She barely drinks, she's not a partier, she isn't a good time girl, she's a workaholic who uplifts women and who was charmed by him for a brief time in her life." Now she emphasized that J-Lo does not deserve to be conflated with Diddy's shocking and criminal misdeeds. So Thea claims that J-Lo is innocent in all of this, which is a great thing, and it's honestly good to see someone having J-Lo's back at a time like this. They've been digging up photos of J-Lo at parties and have been speculating a lot. Now, besides proof that J-Lo had been to some of his white parties, as she was his girlfriend, there's been zero proof that she had anything to do with the crimes Diddy committed, nor that she even knew about them. While her ex-assistant has stood up for her, J-Lo, for her part though, has stayed silent. And she probably will be for the time being, as she doesn't really address rumors or drama. It's obviously a sensitive subject and is something that the star doesn't want to discuss. So if you meet J-Lo, I'd suggest not asking her about Diddy. Besides, if she has something to say, she will say it eventually. It's a very sticky situation that she's in, and nobody is entitled to her opinion on the whole situation. Now, since breaking up with Diddy, J-Lo has claimed that he was unfaithful during their relationship. Now, maybe this is why she won't talk about him. She could still be hurt by all of this. Now, throughout their relationship and after their breakup, J-Lo was aware of rumors that Diddy was cheating on her. When the pair first met, Diddy essentially love-bombed her. He gave her a ton of attention and told her that he loved her almost immediately. J-Lo said this made her uncomfortable at first, but then she fell for him. As their relationship wore on though, the feelings of doubt crept back in. It was the first time I was with someone who wasn't faithful, she told Vibe magazine after the breakup. I was in this relationship with Puff where I was totally crying, crazy, and going nuts. It really took my whole life in a tailspin. Now she grew increasingly concerned about his fidelity, saying, "I never caught him, but I just knew," she said of his cheating. He said he was going to the club for a couple of hours and then he'd never come back that night. Now, Diddy himself has admitted that he was often unfaithful in relationships. In a 2015 appearance on The Breakfast Club, he said his partners would often be frustrated with his behavior. Now, J-Lo later admitted they broke up and got back together far more than the public knew, which honestly isn't healthy at all. But in 2001, the couple ended things for good. It was scary, and we broke up many times before that and got back together and broke up again, and nobody knew about it. Now, it seems like J-Lo is more stressed out about everything regarding this relationship than participating in Diddy's extracurricular activities. Yes, she attended some of his parties, but that was only when they were dating, and she didn't know what was happening behind the scenes. I mean, when J-Lo was asked about Diddy in 2022 when she was on the Wendy Williams show, things got, well, awkward. Wendy asked if she and Diddy would ever get back together, and J-Lo laughed and shook her head as the camera panned to her mother sitting in the audience. Now J-Lo's mother looked furious as she shouted no while waving her hand back and forth. Now reposting the clip on Twitter, one fan wrote, "Some of y'all didn't catch J-Lo's mom's reaction when Wendy Williams said this." Yeah, I feel like this says a lot about their relationship. Clearly there was something going on and she didn't want to be associated with him anymore. And the fact that J-Lo's mom doesn't like Diddy, that speaks volumes. Recently, some shocking information was revealed from someone who attended Diddy's exclusive parties. On November 1st, former model Rachel Kennedy appeared on Daily Mail's The Trial of Diddy podcast to share her experience. Now, during her appearance, Rachel revealed that when she met Diddy in the year 2000, Diddy allegedly played J-Lo's music videos on a continuous loop in his hotel room while he was reportedly on the phone with the singer. It was kind of an odd thing to find out that we were watching J-Lo's video, she said, describing it as it's a little bit creepy and very disrespectful. Yeah, I'd have to agree with Rachel on that. Rachel, along with two friends, was invited to Diddy's hotel room for a party after meeting him at Seventh Heaven, a topless club in Japan. She shared that it quickly became clear that this was not the type of party they had expected. Rachel recounted that she and her friends initially found Diddy friendly and decided to stay, even after noticing some wild behavior around them. "We went in, we didn't think anything strange, he was friendly enough, so we decided, okay, we'll just hang out with him," she said. Now things took a turn though, and it's now believed that this was actually one of Diddy's freak-offs. Rachel went on to say when she and her friends were with Diddy, suddenly one of his bodyguards barged into the room and he looked so violent and angry. He then ejected the women from the room, which came off as a shock to them. She said, "We just couldn't believe what was happening. First of all, how does he have that much access to Puff Daddy's room? That's the first thing I thought. How does he just come in like that?" Looking back at the strange experience, she alleged that the Bad Boy Records founder teaches them the behavior as he's their boss. She added, "He is the puppet master of all of this, and this is why people think it's okay, because he's teaching them that this kind of behavior is acceptable. He's like a cult leader and these people are his disciples," she said. Now this makes sense, as it's been released that Diddy had plenty of rules his employees had to follow when it came to finding him women. A former party planner who worked with Diddy during 2004 and 2005, who wished to remain anonymous, stated that women attending these parties were subjected to weight weight checks. We would do a weigh-in if necessary. The girls had to be young and hot, so I always had a scale nearby in case I needed to make sure. The number was 140 pounds, but if a girl was really tall, there was a little bit of discretion involved, said the planner, adding that other requirements included no flab, no cellulite, no overly pierced or tattooed, and no short hair. Now, the dress code reportedly demanded women wear short dresses with high stilettos being a non-negotiable. No pants, no jeans, no flat shoes. Every girl had to wear a party dress, preferably very short, just enough to cover her butt cheeks but no longer than mid-thigh, cleavage showing. And every single one of them had to be wearing stilettos. That one, there was no exception, high stilettos. The New York Post quoted the planner as saying. Now, it seems like we won't find out more from J-Lo regarding this whole situation unless she's called on to testify in court. But with everything that's been released about Diddy, J-Lo is the least of our problems. She is notoriously one of the most difficult celebrities to work with. She was one of 6 models of her generation declared supermodels by the fashion industry and the international press, and I think it's safe to say that this got to her head, and she thought that she could behave however she wanted. Back in 1998, Georgina Galanis filed a lawsuit claiming Naomi became physical with her while they were on a work trip in Canada. Amongst the shocking allegations Georgina brought to light, she alleged that Naomi grabbed her by the throat and even hit her with a phone. Along with that, in 2004, her maid claimed to have been slapped in the face. In 2005, her personal assistant alleged Naomi had smacked her around the head with a BlackBerry, while another associate accused her of coming over like Mike Tyson after they wore the same dress to an event. In 2006, she was arrested on suspicion of attacking her drugs counselor, while a former housekeeper sought damages and claimed that she was a violent super bigot. Now, in 2007, she was sentenced to community service after assaulting her New York maid, who had required stitches after Naomi beat her around the head with a crystal-encrusted phone when she couldn't find a certain pair of jeans. Yeah, that sounds absolutely horrible, and I have no idea why anyone would want to work for her. Then an online user spoke of their experience with Bruce Willis and said this. His movie Hostage was being filmed in several locations of Azusa Canyon. I was a member of a non-profit charity organization that had a sizable gated lot off the base of the canyon, and our location was perfect for many production crews as they could leave all their equipment safely stored overnight. The lot was rented quite often for that purpose. During filming, Mr. Willis would come and go through the lot, where his trailer was also located. Occasionally, a member of the organization would approach him to greet him or ask him for a quick pic, and each and every time without fail, Mr. Willis would stare the person down and quite often say something to them that included his obviously well-rehearsed F-bombs. One instance in particular, I was arriving with one of the senior members of the organization for an early morning meeting. We, after clearing the massive security detail to get into our own lot, parked the car and proceeded to walk towards the entrance of the building. Like any normal human being in a social situation, we wished good morning to the people that we happened to be passing. Honestly, I didn't even realize who it was until he turned his head in our direction and said, "F you." Yikes. On the website Quora, Emily Watford, who worked at the arena where J-Lo once performed, detailed how her niceness is so fake disgusting. Everything in her room had to be white. She made them close and sanitize the entire child playroom for only her kid or kids, whatever she has. And that isn't too bad. If you got the money to do that, then do it, she said. But Emily added what was bad that a doorman looked at her and apparently she hates when staff look at her. So she started yelling at whoever about it in front of the doorman like he wasn't there. He said, "So much for Jenny from the block," as she got him fired. Now that's not all though, as according to HuffPost UK, the singer has reportedly banned staff from working on her new home from talking or making eye contact with her. And she allegedly gave these requirements for a new assistant. The person has to be graceful under pressure, have thick skin, and be resourceful in foreign countries. You'll be on call 24/7, you have to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. Now, according to several of J-Lo's former staff members, Jennifer earned herself the nickname Pay Low because she paid her staff around 50% less than they could make elsewhere. Now, she just treats people like trash and wants to be treated like a queen. Harold Ramis was directing the film Groundhog Day and Bill Murray was starring in it. although Bill was not behaving properly. Now Bill was so fed up with the studio and Harold that he would dodge phone calls, be late to shoots, and basically just blew them off. The communication between himself, the studio, and the director was so poor that they suggested Bill get an assistant to deal with all of that. So he hired a personal assistant who was profoundly deaf, did not have oral speech, only spoke American Sign Language, which Bill did not speak, nor did anyone else in the production, Harold told Entertainment Weekly. But Bill said, "Don't worry, I'm going to learn sign language," and I think it was so inconvenient that in a couple weeks he gave that up. That's anti-communication, you know, let's not talk. Yeah, now that's just insane for everyone involved, and that poor assistant, they probably had no idea what was going on. Now we all know in 2022, Amber Heard had a defamation trial with her ex-husband Johnny Depp. As part of that trial, her former assistant Kate James testified, and she worked for Amber from 2012 to 2015. Now in her testimony, she made some pretty shocking allegations about what working for her was really like. Kate claimed in court that Amber would often scream at her and allegedly use illegal substances. She also accused Amber of spitting in her face during her employment, but that was hardly the first time Kate made some dark allegations about her former employer. You see, 2 years earlier, she spoke out against Amber in another trial, this time when Johnny Depp took on the British tabloid The Sun over an op-ed piece Amber had written for the outlet. Now that time, Variety reported that Kate accused Amber of sending her rude and hurtful messages early in the morning on more than one occasion. She also claimed that Amber took her personal story of being an SA survivor and used it as her own. Now Amber had a different version of this story though, as when she took the stand, she spoke out against Kate's allegations and overall character, as she told the court that her former assistant was not easy to work with. Kate's behavior was horrible, she stated. Now, per NBC News, Graham Chase Robinson accused Robert De Niro of allegedly touching her without her permission and making lewd comments while in her presence. Not only that, but Graham said she was asked to do tasks that she wasn't expecting while working for the actor, including household chores and even scratching him on the back. Now, as for what Robert had to say about the allegations, he made it pretty clear he wasn't going to co-sign on his former assistant's take of events, with his lawyers telling Us Weekly, "The allegations made by Graham Chase Robinson against Robert De Niro are beyond absurd." But that wasn't the only drama in this situation, as Graham's allegations came as a part in a countersuit. Robert's Canal Productions had actually filed a lawsuit against Graham that same year, accusing her of not doing her job properly. Now the company alleged that she had a tendency to buy things using her company card, and also supposedly enjoyed watching TV while she was supposed to be working. Now Robert also speculated, per TMZ, that Graham had only made her allegations in retaliation for the initial lawsuit. Now, in recent years, BuzzFeed News spoke to former employees on the Ellen DeGeneres show, all who remained anonymous. They said they were fired after taking medical leave or bereavement days to attend family funerals. One employee, who claims that she was fed up with comments about her race, essentially walked off the job, and honestly, good for her. Others said they were instructed by their direct managers to not speak to Ellen if they saw her around the office. Now most of the former employees blamed executive producers and other senior managers for the day-to-day toxicity, but one former employee said that ultimately it's Ellen's name on the show and she really needs to take more responsibility for the workplace environment. Now if she wants to have her own show and have her name on the show title, she needs to be more involved in what's going on, one former employee said. It's also said that Ellen only appears to be bubbly and down to earth on camera, but backstage she is demanding and rude to her staff. In fact, the same anonymous source revealed that after hours, staffers get together and talk about Queen Ellen. A few had even quit because of her behavior. And what is Ellen's behavior to her staff, you may ask? Well, apparently she explodes at staffers over the tiniest things. Yeah, Ellen doesn't sound like a fun person to work for. And finally, in 2012, Lady Gaga's assistant Jennifer O'Neill brought a lawsuit against her that claimed that the singer owed her roughly $390,000 for more than 7,000 hours of overtime. During her 13-month stint as the singer's helper, Jennifer said she was expected to be on call 24/7, wake the star up, and even make sure she had a towel waiting after a shower. She added that the two frequently slept in the same bed because Jennifer never had her own hotel room while on tour and was required to address Gaga's needs throughout the night. Now that is just wrong. The Daily Mail O'Neal also revealed that during a videotaped deposition, Gaga was quoted as saying, "Jennifer is an effing hood rat who is suing me for money that she didn't earn."
By now, everyone knows the horror that comes with working with supermodel Naomi Campbell. According to People magazine, Campbell allegedly threw a phone at her assistant in 2001. The assistant also claimed that the model grabbed her by the arms and threw her down on a couch. In February of 2000, Campbell pleaded guilty to a separate charge for actually beating up an assistant. Now, in September of 2016, Campbell faced more legal trouble after allegedly attacking a former public schoolboy with a phone. Again, another phone, leaving a bruise on his face. Now, the unnamed young man who works for a PR firm and was hired to actually help, rehabilitate Campbell's public image, was visiting her in a hotel in Manhattan when the scuffle broke out. Everyone has a different version of what happened, so it's impossible to really know what exactly went down. Campbell was apparently recovering from surgery at the time of the incident, casting, a pall of doubt kind of over whether she was actually, capable of attacking anyone. It's worth noting Lord Bell, founder of the PR firm working with Campbell, called Campbell the most unpleasant fashion model in the world. That's coming from a man who previously worked with the notorious tyrant Margaret Thatcher. Mariah Carey is next. Let's talk about Mariah Carey's former assistant, Liana Azarian. In 2019, Liana sued Mariah for unpaid wages and revealed some shocking secrets about the singer's behavior. In the original lawsuit, Carey accused Liana, whom she reportedly fired in 2017, of secretly recording embarrassing videos of her performing various personal activities, including, some cases, intimate content. Now, according to the pop star, her ex-employee then attempted to blackmail her with those videos, threatening to release them unless she was given $8 million. Carey also claimed that she violated a non-disclosure agreement that she signed when she began working for her back in 2015. On the same day that Carey filed her lawsuit, Liana filed a lawsuit of her own, claiming, she was the victim of battery and harassment during the, approximately 2 years that she worked for the musician before actually being wrongfully terminated. According to Liana, Mariah would often demand ridiculous things like having her assistant fetch her ice cream at like 3 o'clock in the morning. Liana also claimed that Mariah would frequently, berate her and just make her feel belittled. Carey went on to accuse her of destroying some of the evidence at the center of this lawsuit that the singer says would have bolstered, her case against her. Justice Borak sided with Carey, granting her request to penalize her former assistant and issuing sanctions after he found that Liana did in fact destroy 2 videos and WhatsApp messages that might have actually been relevant to the case. He also determined that after the lawsuit had already been filed, Liana spilled, water over her old cell phone before giving it away, which he found was destruction of evidence. Borak wrote in his decision, trading in her cell phone without taking any measures to save the videos, messages, and any other data after this lawsuit was filed when Miss Azarian had an undeniable duty to preserve evidence, was grossly negligent, if not intentional. He ordered her to turn over, her current cell phone for forensic examination and pay Carey's attorney fees for that specific matter. Lady Gaga is up. Lady Gaga's former assistant Jennifer O'Neal in 2013 sued Lady Gaga for unpaid overtime and revealed some surprising secrets about the singer's lifestyle. This long-suffering former assistant, whom the star branded as a hood rat during a bruising court battle, is working on a dishy book about the singer called Fame Monster. O'Neal had worked for Gaga during, the Born This Way era, during 2009 actually to 2011. Now, this was for her Monster Ball tour, and she actually sued in 2011, claiming that she was owed a whopping $393,000 for about 7,168 hours of overtime, plus damages. She struck a deal with Simon & Schuster imprint, which is for Atria Books. Now, insiders said the deal could be worth up to $1 million at the time now, which more than makes up for all the overtime O'Neal claims that she was forced to work for Gaga, including sleeping in her boss's bed and administering her daily medicine. Now, according to Jennifer, Lady Gaga would often require her assistant to be on call 24/7 and would demand very bizarre things like having her assistant massage her feet. Now, Paul Oleski, which is Atria's Books vice president and director of publicity, confirmed that they had a book deal with O'Neal, adding that no release date had had been set at the time for the book Fame Monster. While O'Neill has not yet delivered her manuscript to Atria after all this time, her Manhattan federal court battle with Gaga provided a glimpse of some fascinating potential, material. Now, O'Neill testified that she was required to sleep in Gaga's bed because she didn't sleep alone and was expected to be working again 24/7 around the clock doing really odd demands. And that was for an annual salary of $75,000. O'Neill said, she had no privacy, no chance to talk to any family, friends, no chance to do anything. There was basically not an opportunity for her to live her life. Gaga fought the suit and blasted her former aide in a sworn deposition as, she called her a hood rat who was suing her for money that she just didn't earn. The star declared in court papers that, I am the queen of the universe every day, and, I am quite wonderful to everybody that works for me. Now, in October of 2013, Gaga agreed to actually settle O'Neill's suit out of court, and terms were not disclosed. Kanye West. Kanye's former assistant David Weather spilled some secrets about the rapper's behavior. In 2014, David claimed that Kanye would often have massive tantrums and would demand ridiculous things, like having his assistant find him a very specific type of cereal. None of this is surprising, and in more recent times, Kanye's West's ex-assistant Lauren Piscotah had filed a lawsuit accusing him of attacking her. The lawsuit also reveals disturbing text messages between West and his now wife, Bianca Censori. Piscotah alleges an incident involving sedating occurred during a studio session in Santa Monica, causing her to feel disoriented and lose control over her body. Piscotah, while sharing details, mentioned that the rapper ordered her a drink, after which she began feeling out of touch, and she said the next morning when she woke up, she had no recollection of what had happened, but just knew that something was really wrong and felt this immense shame and embarrassment. The studio session is alleged to have happened years before Piscotah actually worked for Kanye in 2021 and 2022. Now, Kanye was allegedly upset that his ex-wife Kim Kardashian commented on the rapper and Piscotah hanging out. She claimed that Kanye told Kardashian the two hooked up and left out the actual true nature and severity of what he did to her. After Piscotah actually informed Kanye that she couldn't recall the night at the studio, he allegedly kind of just laughed it off and said, "Oh, women love to say they don't remember." A representative for Kanye, in a statement to the Washington Post in June of last year, criticized the baseless allegations against him and wrote that Piscotah, actively pursued him to coerce employment and other material benefits, then engaged in blackmail and extortion when her advances were rejected. Next up, we have Victoria and David Beckham. Now, in 2008, David Beckham and Victoria's nanny, Abby Gibson, was terminated from her job after getting into a very heated argument with Victoria. In retaliation, she actually ran to News of the World to give a tell-all interview about what the Beckhams were like and spilled some secrets about the family. Behind Closed Doors was actually the name of the article that was published. Now, in this interview, she revealed that the famous Brits, perfect family facade was mostly fabricated for the press, and that David and Victoria often argued, and in front of the kids, allegedly. Now, she also explained that the famous spouses almost got divorced while Victoria was still pregnant with her third child, Cruz. However, after, her scathing interview, Abby, who broke her confidentiality agreement, was sent to court for breaking her contract. In 2009, she was forced to issue a public apology to the Beckhams for revealing their secrets and has agreed, to permanent undertakings of confidentiality. In 2005, Hugh Tomlinson, Queen's counsel for the Beckhams, told the court it is uniquely hurtful and distressing to have the person who, until the end of March of that year, was sitting around the breakfast table with them, and their children discussing their daily lives. Having her repeat that information is alarming. Charlie Sheen's former assistant, Rick Calamero, revealed some shocking secrets about the actor's behavior. According to Rick, Charlie would often have wild parties and would demand that his assistants clean up after him. Now, he said that Sheen allegedly would stay up for days on end with zero sleep, no water in his body, wouldn't eat, and would demand that everyone cater to him constantly, and even allegedly had people perform, for his entertainment, doing random stupid things just to make him laugh. Rick, who's actually a former Hollywood nightclub owner, met the actor back in 2006 and in 2010 actually joined Camp Sheen full-time as an assistant. Now, Rick was reportedly, by Sheen's side for many of his legendary antics in Vegas, LA, and New York, and in a very shocking turn of events though, Rick was actually found passed away in his home surrounded by prescription meds and booze. Now, he allegedly was laying passed away for several days before he was even found. Sheen never commented on his passing either, which is a little weird, and a lot of people blamed Rick for Charlie, going crazy and partying too hard during those days, but many people also said they had been best friends for years and just enabled each other in their antics. Now, it was obvious that they were poor influences on each other, no doubt. Sheen has frequently stated that he does not believe rehab actually works, and the friends, he has shared many common dependency, habits on and lifestyle similarities is to what's to blame, basically.
Justin Bieber recently parted ways with his personal assistant, but some sources say that Justin had actually fired the man 5 years ago. The reason right now for the split is because the assistant was looking to focus on his acting career. He had been working for the famous couple since 2018. The downsizing seems to be a trend for Bieber lately. His team keeps getting smaller, and he recently unfollowed a bunch of past coworkers and friends, so this is actually not that out of the ordinary right now. Sources claiming to be close to the situation, of course, claim that the assistant actually left Bieber because they were worried about his erratic behavior as of late. But up next with Lady Gaga and the mess from 2013. A former assistant and friend filed a lawsuit back in 2011, but the ball wasn't rolling until a couple years later. The assistant, Jennifer O'Neill, was suing Gaga for unpaid overtime, an alleged 7,168 hours of it, which is almost $400,000. Gaga did end up sharing her side of the story in her deposition. The singer said that she doesn't pay overtime and never has, and this being the second time the assistant worked for her, she should have been familiar with that policy. Gaga also appeared to say O'Neill had it good because she was jetting around the world with her, sleeping in expensive hotels, and also literally sleeping in those beds. Plus, there was the food and the parties that she got to experience. Gaga even alleged that O'Neill asked famous designers to send her free things and used Gaga's discounts at their stores without permission. Now, the thing is, Gaga definitely said some rude things during this deposition, so it's clear that both sides had some stuff to work on. Gaga also said that O'Neill just wasn't a very good assistant, citing things like not helping the star get set up when traveling, which might seem a bit ridiculous, asking someone else to go get your toothbrush for you, but remember that Lady Gaga can't just walk down a street to the nearest corner store without risk of being mobbed by fans. Rumor is the assistant is writing a book about her experiences, but it's been over a decade now and crickets, so who knows if that's really happening in the end or if any of this even happened at all. Now, no one else on this list is going to have quite as much trouble as Taryn Manning's ex-assistant did. So much trouble that the pair ended up in court. When you hear celebrity assistant horror stories, it's usually things that are just kind of like weird situations like the Lady Gaga stuff, but it's rare that you hear about legit violence. Taryn Manning's assistant happened to be an unlucky one. The actress was charged back in 2012 with a misdemeanor after the assistant accused of coming into violent physical contact with her, restricting her airflow and scratching. Taryn's representation apparently kept downplaying the whole thing, and even referred to the assistant as a member of the family, saying that this was all just personal issues. Still, the judge ordered the actress to stay away from her ex-assistant, and the assistant later ended up forgiving the star in the end. Now, I think we all remember the iconic film The Devil Wears Prada. Turns out that fiction was based on fact. The author was an assistant to Anna Wintour before writing the book, so it's safe to assume that she pulled from her personal experiences, which is probably why it's so good. Although, like most things, it's made larger than life for entertainment purposes. Although, I wouldn't be surprised if Wintour did have assistants on hand just to help her remember people's names. She is one of the most famous people in the fashion world after all. Moving on to Kim K's ex-assistant, who shared some interesting facts about how the woman looks so good all the time. At least, the word on the street is, it was an ex-assistant that said all this. The earliest mention I can find citing this simply says a source, but other articles are adamant that it was an ex-assistant. The secret in question is apparently when Kim K gets fat removed from her body, she allegedly freezes it to use in other spots on her body. Popular ways to use it would be like fillers or in rear enhancements. The source claimed that the latter was what Kim K used it for. The star is adamant that she does not have implants, so this would be an alternative should her body type not be natural. Of course, all this info came out roughly a decade ago and hasn't moved past speculation, so it's up to you what you want to think. Supermodel Naomi Campbell has made a name for herself as a supermodel fashion diva, but also seemingly a danger to those that she employs. Many employees have come forward with various stories of the supermodel acting rudely towards them. One personal assistant even called out the model for getting physically violent with her in 2000. Vanessa Frisbee claimed that she was attacked during an argument with the star. Of course, Campbell said this never happened and sued Frisbee, specifically for breach of contract. In the end, the case was thrown out. But then, another PA came forward in 2004. This time, the claim was they were held hostage in an LA hotel where a phone was thrown at them. Again, this was denied, and again, the case was dropped. But then here we are back at it in 2005, when another assistant accused the model of hurting her with a, and this is a direct quote, jewel-encrusted BlackBerry. Denied again. There were technically more people that accused the model of mean things, but those are all the assistants. Lindsay Lohan is doing quite well now, but it's hard to forget that she basically pinned her 2012 car crash on her assistant Gavin Doyle. Back in the early 2010s, Lohan's Porsche rear-ended a truck. The star allegedly told police that she was in the passenger seat, and Gavin Doyle, her assistant, was the driver. Except when police spoke to Gavin, his story was flipped. Eventually, through other evidence, police concluded that Gavin was telling the truth. Gavin ended up bailing Lohan out after it all, but she apparently was still angry with him considering she kicked him out of the car. The pair seemed to patch things up later on, but it was quite a moment while it was happening. One thing about the early 2000s, they were messy, and Jessica Simpson's past assistant was no stranger to being messy. The woman decided to speak to the star and spread some rumors about Simpson, like that she doesn't pay at restaurants because she believes her star power is good enough, which is completely wild to think about, so thank goodness there isn't much evidence out there to prove it. Of course, not trying to say that this never happened, I don't know, I wasn't there. However, there is one pretty famous restaurant story that makes me less inclined to believe this little piece of gossip. Last year, Simpson left a $300 tip on a $500 check with a sweet note. So, who knows what kind of person Simpson was in a restaurant 20 years ago, but today she seems like the right kind of guest. Madonna herself revealed that she has an assistant for a very specific and very strange role, the food police. When you're off traveling the world and performing for adoring crowds, you're thinking so much about others that you sometimes forget yourself. And for Madonna, that means she sometimes just forgets to eat. And hey, happens to the best of us. Plus, she's a perfectionist, so she wants to make sure everything on the tour is perfect, especially her eating patterns. And if you can afford to pay someone to check in on you, why not? They are also making sure she drinks water too, of course. Rumor is that Sarah Jessica Parker wants her assistants as smart as possible, which, that makes sense, but apparently an Ivy League education is practically a job offer. Parker is known for having really good relationships with her assistants. She was even a bridesmaid to a past assistant of hers. Although, what makes her celebrity secret my personal favorite of the list is it's a little bit out there. Somewhere along the way, a past staff member claimed that SJP practices witchcraft. Yeah, I fear something got a little bit lost in translation here. See, there's nothing online to suggest that Sarah Jessica Parker is a full witch, other than her role in Hocus Pocus, of course. My guess is things got a little murky when Sarah Jessica Parker learned of a past ancestor. She is actually related to a woman imprisoned during the Salem witch trials. So her Hocus Pocus character actually hits closer to home than she thought. And even if she is following her however many great-grandmother's footsteps and practicing a little witchcraft, good for her.
Before Kim Kardashian leaves the house on a typical day, there will be numerous outfit changes. At least 5 or 6 if her former husband was there, an insider told Radar. Kim will tell one of her assistants to fetch more clothes from her massive closet. And then afterwards, she's gonna discard them on the floor. She's never gonna bother to hang them back up. That's what the assistants are for. And they also have to restock her closet right. If not, they're in trouble. According to the source, Kim is very particular about how she wants sweaters folded. And in one incident, a staffer didn't do it up to her standards, so Kim took one sweater out of the middle of the stack, completely messing up what was just done. Kim's closet was the holy land in the home. and she wanted it to look pristine at all times. She even had staffers stay late at night to organize it after returning from any kind of event. Britney Spears' former longtime assistant and friend, Felicia Culotta, spoke out about her notoriously controversial conservatorship on a couple of occasions, but one of the most shocking claims came when she pretty much confirmed what fans already knew, that Britney's conservatorship had seemingly driven a wedge between her and her inner circle, who had been by Britney's side since the very start of her fame in the late 1990s, was very candid in the 2021 documentary, The New York Times Presents Controlling Britney Spears, claiming she felt Britney's dad, Jamie Spears, had pushed her out of Britney's life. It slowly became where I wasn't allowed by her side and wasn't allowed to have a conversation without other people present, which was very odd, Culotta said, suggesting those involved in the conservatorship left Britney isolated. I don't have any way of getting in touch with her at this point. All the numbers that I have for her now are changed. Lindsay Lohan's assistant rolled on her when he spoke to cops after her car accident on Pacific Coast Highway back in 2012, and that's a big reason why things took the turn they did in the justice system, according to TMZ. Cops interviewed Lindsay's assistant at the time, Gavin, shortly after the crash, and this was at the hospital where Lindsay was being treated. And according to law enforcement sources, he told police he was riding in the passenger seat when the accident occurred, and Lindsay was driving. So as you now know, Lindsay told the cops she was a passenger in her Porsche, but authorities didn't believe her, and lying to cops gets somebody in a lot of trouble. Gavin's statement was the final nail in the coffin, when he said he saw Lindsay behind the wheel. Via Twitter, he also posted comments directed at Lindsay, urging her to get help. At Lindsay Lohan, after bailing you out last night, I hope and pray you get the help you so desperately need, he wrote. We are all rooting for you. And shortly after, he posted another message, writing, life is not a movie, it's a reality that needs to be faced. Ouch. Mariah Carey's former personal assistant, Leanna Azarin, claimed she was subjected to battery and harassment during her approximately 2 years of employment before being wrongfully terminated by the singer in 2017. Well, that's according to a lawsuit filed with the Los Angeles Superior Court on the same day that Carey sued Leanna, accusing her former assistant of secretly filming embarrassing videos in violation of a non-disclosure agreement and trying to extort her out of $8 million. According to a copy of Leanna's 32-page complaint, she says she was hired by Carey in September of 2015 at a salary of $250,000 per year, which eventually increased to $328,500. Leanna claimed the job entailed her to be on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to assist both Carey and the singer's former manager. According to the lawsuit, Leanna claims the manager subjected her to verbal and physical harm, including repeatedly ridiculing her about her body by putting iPhones, remote controls, and utensils under certain parts. Apparently, the former manager slapped her in body parts and called her names that we can't repeat. On multiple occasions, Leanna claimed the manager tackled her to the ground and then urinated on her. According to the lawsuit, Carey knew about and was present for much of the alleged mistreatment, but permitted it to continue. And when Leanna complained about the manager's conduct in October of 2017, she was fired 1 month later. So she was suing for battery, discrimination, harassment, and wrongful termination. The manager's attorney couldn't be reached for comment on the allegations. But according to People, Carey's lawsuit accuses her former assistant of being a grifter, a peeping Tom, and an extortionist, because all of these secret videos were filmed, and apparently Leanna claimed if she released it, it would be personally embarrassing and professionally damaging to Mariah Carey. Leanna displayed the intimate videos to her friends and coworkers, and said that if she was ever let go, she'd sell them for a profit and buy herself a home. While some may assume The Devil Wears Prada is an exaggeration of how Vogue head honcho Anna Wintour operates, Amy Odell, the author of Anna the Biography, has learned that the magazine executive can really act as dramatic as the character that was portrayed famously by Meryl Streep. For the book, Odell chatted with some of the fashionistas' former assistants, and since they spelled the T anonymously, they didn't bite their tongue. To start, an employee referred to as Assistant A revealed their workday could kick off as early as 7:30 in the morning. The first task is essentially setting up the office. So the reason you came in at 7:30 is because Anna comes in before 8. She might come in anywhere between 7:45 to 8. So 7:30 to 7:45 gives the second assistant the opportunity to gather all the things she'll need for the day, printing out or setting up her schedule, listening to the voicemails and leaving out any messages that might be urgent for her to respond to in the morning, making sure all the periodicals and newspapers that she'd want to read are set out, and then, depending on when she is definitely coming in, potentially getting her coffee and breakfast. According to one report, Anna Wintour always asks for a blueberry muffin from Starbucks, though it mostly goes untouched. Assistant C had a similar play-by-play, noting they'd arrive in the office around 7:30, then you have to respond to any emails that Anna sent over the night before. Then get your own work done. Regardless of their early start to the day, the assistants had to be available around the clock. Requests came in day and night. One assistant had dreams. They would wake up in the middle of the night and think, do I have to check my email? This was Assistant B. She's always talking to you. It would just be constant emails. She was just firing away all the time, always needing something. Khloe Kardashian has found herself in hot water with former assistants numerous times. Most recently, her former assistant, Matthew Manhard, who worked for her from 2019 to 2022, filed a civil lawsuit claiming he wasn't paid for overtime, wasn't allowed to take breaks, and worse. In a lawsuit obtained by TMZ, Manhard claimed he was let go by Khloe in November of 2022 after becoming a member of staff in January of 2019. The lawsuit claimed Kardashian fired him after he returned to work in November following a knee injury from May that prevented him from working. Christian Bale's former assistant, Harrison Chung, wrote an entire book about his time with his former employer, a book entitled Christian Bale, The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. He wrote some of the wildest things he did for Bale, saying, "If Christian was away filming on location, I would take care of his 5 pets, along with stray possums in the backyard. I would do anything from sniffing Christian's armpits for BO right before he hit the red carpet, to making emergency sock runs if he was all out of clean ones." Actress Taryn Manning found a horseshoe somewhere when the criminal case against her for harming her makeup artist was dismissed, with one small string attached. So Manning was arrested after she allegedly punched and kicked her makeup artist/friend/roommate after a night of heavy drinking. She was charged with causing harm and obstruction of breathing or redness circulation. The victim, Holly Hartman, declined to prosecute the case, and a judge granted an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal. To translate, if Taryn keeps her nose clean and does some community service, the arrest and criminal charges go away, as if it never happened. So Holly was Taryn's assistant and makeup artist for a long time, but everything ended. Naomi Campbell isn't exactly the nicest boss to her assistants, as many have claimed. Back in 1998, Georgia Galanis filed a lawsuit against Campbell, saying she struck her with her phone and grabbed her by the throat. Campbell pleaded guilty. 8 years later, another assistant named Amanda Bratt alleged she was struck in the face with a phone numerous times, according to Nicki Swift's website. Another assistant said Campbell gave insane demands, with one, Rebecca White, claiming she put 25 lily-scented candles in any room Campbell wanted. This was according to the New York Post. And finally for today, Lady Gaga, who is embroiled in quite the bitter lawsuit with her former aide Jennifer O'Neill, said it wasn't great. Jennifer O'Neill gave us mere mortals a glimpse into that when, apparently, Lady Gaga once claimed she was the queen of the universe, and O'Neill did not want to be her slave. So in court papers, Gaga whined that O'Neill failed in simple duties, such as laying out her toothbrush and soap so that she knew where they were. Apparently O'Neill lived large off her dime, wore her clothes, bagged the best bed on her private jet, and left poor Lady Gaga to lug her own suitcases. Now meanwhile, the disgruntled O'Neill, who is suing Lady Gaga for $390,000 in unpaid overtime plus damages, testified she was required to sleep in Lady Gaga's bed because she didn't sleep alone, and was expected to be working and available 24/7 for an annual salary of $75 grand. Such hours and demands might seem absurd to those outside of showbiz circles, but to insiders, apparently this is par for the course. There's no such thing as having your own time, but for that minimum wage, not it.
Now, in 2008, David Beckham and Victoria Beckham's nanny, Abby Gibson, was terminated from her job after getting into a heated argument with Victoria. In retaliation, she actually ran to News of the World to give a tell-all interview about what the Beckhams were like behind closed doors, which would actually then become the actual title of the article. Now, in her interview, she revealed that the famous British perfect family facade was mostly fabricated for the press, and that David and Victoria often argued a lot. She also explained that the famous spouses almost got divorced while Victoria was still pregnant with their 3rd child, Cruz. However, after her scathing interview, Abby, who broke her confidentiality agreement, was actually sent to court for breaking her contract. In 2009, she was forced to issue a public apology to the Beckhams for revealing their secrets and has agreed to permanent undertakings of confidentiality. Now, in 2005, Hugh Tomlinson, Queen's counsel for the Beckhams, told the court it is uniquely hurtful and distressing to have the person who until the end of March this year was sitting around the breakfast table with them and their children discussing their daily lives, and repeating that information. Mariah Carey apparently doesn't watch the news. Producer Damian Young, who worked with Mariah during the 90s and eventually became her close friend, described the pop star as lonely and said she lived inside like a bubble. He went on to say, she didn't watch watch the news, she didn't watch entertainment shows or read the magazines because she was worried about reading mean things about herself. She's sensitive, and that is nothing compared though to actually one of her former assistants who claimed that she was subjected to physical and emotional trauma at the hands of Mariah's manager. Now, Liana Shaknazaran filed a lawsuit in Los Angeles Superior Court claiming that she was tormented by the singer and the singer's former manager. According to the suit, she was hired by Carey, offered a salary of over $300,000 a year. She said she had to be on call 24/7 hours a day. The assistant actually said she was subjected to this, mistreatment mainly by Mariah's former manager, but Mariah was allegedly in the room whenever it would happen and did absolutely nothing to stop it. In a turn of events though, Mariah then sued Liana, claiming she is a grifter and extortionist. Carey sued also for invasion of privacy, breach of contract, and breach of fiduciary duty. Allegedly, Liana filmed Mariah engaged in personal activities without Mariah's permission. Both parties ended up reaching a mutual agreement. Nothing further has actually come from it, so that's good. Oprah Winfrey only drinks Diet Coke. Now, this isn't like the craziest story, but it's kind of funny, so I wanted to give it an honorable mention. According to an anonymous staffer who actually worked at Harpo Productions, where they filmed the Oprah Winfrey show, Oprah would only drink Diet Coke and she hated Pepsi. However, the vending machine at the studio only served Pepsi, which forced her staffers to serve her Pepsi that they actually called Coke. Now, one unfortunate employee didn't get that memo. He shared his story saying, "When I first started, I was asked to go get a Diet Coke. I saw that the machine was all Pepsi products, so I hauled my behind over to a Subway, bought a Diet Coke, and came back. I took it into the senior producer's office, who said, 'Where the heck have you been? We needed that yesterday.' I told her I went across the street to get a Diet Coke since that's what they asked for. She said, 'You're so stupid. When they ask for a Diet Coke, they mean, they get a Diet Pepsi.' That's when I knew my days at Harpo were limited." He got fired all because of this very small mix-up. Ouch. Christian Bale was depressed during his early years as an actor. Harrison Chung, who worked as Christian's assistant/publicist back before the actor became really famous, said the star was really depressed and just under tremendous pressure to support his parents and his sisters through his acting career. He said, "I would always joke with him that he was the saddest guy I knew. He had the whole top floor of the house and he would stay there for days listening to music or reading. He was very moody." Harrison also explained the bizarre ways Christian's family would motivate him to continue working. He said every morning his father would prepare Christian's breakfast tray, scrambled eggs with some baked beans, like a real English tea type breakfast, walk up the stairs yelling, "Who is the greatest actor in the world?" And then he said you'd hear this small voice coming back just saying, I am. Lil Wayne is next. In late 2022, Young Money Entertainment and Signature Flight Support were all sued by Wayne's former assistant Andrew Williams after he made some bombshell allegations about the notorious rapper. In legal documents, the former assistant actually accused Wayne of multiple things, including both attacks and battery, while also alleging Wayne had caused him what he described as emotional distress. In this suit, Andrew actually claims that Wayne and the pilot had an argument before takeoff. Andrew said he tried to stop the argument from getting physical, which he claimed, upset Wayne and led to the rapper punching him in the face with a closed fist. But not so fast, at least according to Wayne, that is, because Wayne denied all allegations of wrongdoing or that Andrew was harmed by him at all. Wayne argued that his actions were done in self-defense. As of January 2023, the situation between the two is still yet to be resolved in court. Actor Amber Heard's personal life has been dissected publicly thanks to her high-profile legal dramas, with one of the most famous ones being her notorious 2022 defamation trial with ex-husband Johnny Depp. As part of that trial, her former assistant Kate James testified, and she made some pretty shocking allegations about what being in Heard's presence, when she worked for her from 2012 and 2015 was really like. James claimed in court that Heard would often scream at her and allegedly used illegal substances. Now, James wasn't quite done there, as she also accused Heard of spitting in her face during her employment. But that was hardly the first time James made some dark allegations about her former employer. 2 years earlier, James spoke out against Heard in another trial, this time when Depp took on British tabloid The Sun over an op-ed piece that Heard had written for the outlet. Variety reported that James accused Heard of purportedly sending, her aggressive messages early in the morning on more than one occasion. James also claimed Heard took her personal story of being an SA survivor and used it as her own. Heard told the court that her former assistant was not easy to work with. She said James team's behavior was horrible. Another star who isn't immune to serious allegations from their former assistant, none other than Robert De Niro. Graham Chase Robinson accused the actor of allegedly touching her without her permission and making lewd comments while in her presence. Not only that, but Robinson said she was asked to do tasks she wasn't expecting while working for the Meet the Parents star, including household chores and even scratching him on the back. Yes, she alleged that De Niro made the request on numerous occasions and once told her, "I like the way you do it." She also said De Niro and his family would regularly call the bat phone, meaning her work cell phone, and that was like after office hours. She said whenever it rang, whether it was 5 in the morning, 10 at night, you would pick up. As for what De Niro had to say about the allegations, he made it pretty clear he wasn't about to co-sign on his former assistant's take on the events, with his lawyer telling a news blog the allegations made by Graham against De Niro are beyond absurd. But that wasn't the only drama in this situation, as Robinson's allegations came as part of a countersuit. De Niro and Campbell Productions, had actually filed a lawsuit against Robinson that same year, accusing her of not doing her job properly. The company alleged Robinson had a tendency to buy things using the company card and supposedly enjoyed watching too much TV or Netflix while she was supposed to be working. De Niro also speculated that Robinson had only made her allegations in retaliation for the initial lawsuit. Robinson was employed by De Niro from 2008 to 2019, so pretty long, and when she quit her job, she was Cannell's vice president, of production and finance at the time. As of right now, the two parties are still in the thick of their legal battle, so stay tuned.
J-Lo, who has famously declared, "Don't be fooled by the rocks that I got, I'm still Jenny from the block," has weathered tales of her alleged snobbery for years. In just one instance reported by the Daily Star, when contractors were hired for a job that could take up to a year on J-Lo's old house, those contractors were reportedly informed that they were not to communicate directly with the international star. A source told the tabloids that she has made it clear that if any of the contractors, drivers, or domestic help make eye contact or speak to her, she will not be impressed. J-Lo's supposed superficial superstar antics apparently extend to service workers who just aren't directly in her employ, but who have the unfortunate one-time experience of being snubbed by her. A source said she doesn't speak to salespeople, she doesn't speak to restaurant people, she doesn't speak to hotel staff, flight attendants, she only talks through her assistants. A United Airlines flight attendant backed up this claim, sharing a similar experience with the singer. "I just said, 'What can I get you to drink?' But Jennifer refused to even acknowledge them." They added that she turned her head away and told her personal assistant, "Please tell him I'd like a Diet Coke and lime." She wouldn't even look at me. Now, according to the sources I found, Jennifer has an extreme thing about people looking at her, other than when she's on stage. Then everybody's gotta look at her. Otherwise, if small, unimportant people look at her, and God forbid, open their little unimportant mouths to speak to her holiness, she does whatever she can to retaliate. If they're servers or anyone she can get fired, she gets them fired. In 2013, J-Lo's morals came into question when it was reported that she earned in the neighborhood of $10 million performing for shady dictators, at least according to news outlets. Also, apparently, the Human Rights Foundation and a lot of folks were very critical of J-Lo's decision to put on a private performance in Turkmenistan for the president at the time, whose government allegedly restricted free speech and imprisoned those who spoke against the nation's alleged corruption. J-Lo's then publicist Mark Young issued a response, however, and the statement made J-Lo's team appear really ill-informed. They said this was not a government-sponsored event or political in nature. The event was vetted by her reps. Had there been knowledge of human rights issues of any kind, Jennifer would not have attended. Well, that statement probably didn't go over well, considering how Human Rights Watch's Rachel Denber, Deputy Director for Europe and Central Asia Division, explained that J-Lo's team didn't have to dig deep for information that would have revealed the controversy surrounding the whole presidential leadership corruption stuff. It was something even J-Lo herself could have discovered. Denber literally said, "Just do a few Google clicks, look up the human rights record, it's right there, it's easy to find." Well, 2 months after the backlash, Young was fired from J-Lo's team. With the whole fiasco going boom in everybody's face, was it possible Young eventually took the fall for what appeared to be some blame shifting after the fact? I think so. Forbes credits makeup artist Scott Barnes with creating the signature technique that became Lopez's iconic glow, which in turn became the preferred look of the era in the early 2000s. The makeup artist has worked with J-Lo since the year 2000, whether it was serving as J-Lo's personal makeup artist for her role in 2019's Hustlers, or for the Super Bowl performance, or whatever it may be. And while their working relationship and friendship spans 2 decades, there was a time when Barnes apparently didn't have her love. Barnes spilled the beans during an interview on the Jeff Probst show after rumors rumors circulated that Barnes and 2 others leaked plans of J-Lo and Anthony's secret marriage, J-Lo's team shunned him. He said, "Nobody would talk to me. It was like I had some sort of disease." When the truth came out that Barnes did not leak the news or even know about the wedding ahead of time, he received a phone call, presumably from J-Lo, whom Barnes claimed said the following: "It was like, hey, it was a big misunderstanding. You know, we have a lot of stuff coming up and I really miss you, so let's just get back to work." And although Barnes was extremely diplomatic in his recounting of the temporary fallout, it's clear that he never received a direct apology, or even a real apology. What's even more interesting is that considering Barnes and Lopez quickly reconciled, he chose not to keep this story about her in-house. So I guess he's the one person she didn't have sign an NDA? Hakkad Manoukian began chauffeuring J-Lo and her then-husband Mark Anthony around in 2005 before eventually being promoted to Lopez's staff full-time as her personal head of security and transportation in early 2011, at least according to TMZ. By September of that year, Manoukian was gone from J-Lo's staff, after which he filed a lawsuit for breach of contract and wrongful termination against J-Lo, her company, New Yorkin Productions, and manager Benny Medina. Manoukian claimed his agreement with J-Lo included a $72,000 yearly salary with additional production pay, potentially increasing his compensation to $200,000 per year. But according to tabloids, however, he claimed that he received no production pay or overtime whatsoever. CNN further reported that Manoukian's suit claimed that he dealt with intolerable labor conditions, such as working more than 40 hours a week and being prevented from taking proper meal periods, which forced him to resign. J-Lo filed a countersuit seeking a minimum of $20 million in damages, claiming the former driver was allegedly blackmailing her for $2.8 million as he threatened to expose private information he overheard when chauffeuring her. So the countersuit alleged that he became hostile and angry after J-Lo rejected his desire to lead and appoint members to organize a security team for a music video production. J-Lo's countersuit was dismissed in December of 2012, and the singer ended up settling the original lawsuit for undisclosed terms in February of 2013. Wish we knew the terms though. Gilly Ayer was a longtime assistant for J-Lo until 2013 when she reportedly left. Without informing J-Lo she'd been looking elsewhere for work. Quiet quitting. According to sources, Gilly went to work for Jermaine Dupri a week after he joined Mariah Carey's management team. Now, J-Lo and Mariah Carey have been publicly painted as rivals for quite some time, so Gilly jumping ship to Lopez's big nemesis camp seemed to sting a lot. We're talking like butter on a burn a lot. Reports surfaced that J-Lo's then boyfriend Casper Smart allegedly ruffled feathers with a lot of J-Lo's staff. Casper always insisted that all of Jennifer's staff call him Mr. Smart, and even demanded that Gilly get him drinks. At least that's what a source told online sources. So with Jenny from the block allegedly doing nothing to set him straight, that may have been the breaking point as to why Gilly left. Gilly had enough. She was over it. She'd been looking to leave for some time, and as soon as Mariah hired Jermaine, she quit. J-Lo was stunned. Now, Gilly may not have publicly trashed J-Lo, but is there anything colder than a personal assistant leaving a celeb staff on short notice to go work for their rival? So, how bad did this hurt the former Fly Girl? Well, it's unclear, but in 2015, Page Six revealed that J-Lo reportedly had a no Mariah clause in her contract with her manager Benny Medina, barring him from managing Mariah Carey at the same time as her. So, oop. According to at least several of J-Lo's former staff members, she's earned herself the nickname Paylo because she paid her staff a lot less than they can make elsewhere. We're talking like half of what they can make elsewhere. Now this rumor's been going around for years. We're talking like back in 2003, when Jennifer was first with Ben Affleck. They were out in Vegas, they were having a good time, they had a big win, and Ben was feeling generous. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna tip the dealer $2,000. But before the dealer could actually claim the reward, J-Lo was like, no, you get $200. So, why does J-Lo pay her staff so little? She's like, well, you know what? I had to work hard to get my money, so you have to work hard to get yours. Which, like, I'm sorry, that's embarrassing. If you had to work so hard to earn your money, wouldn't you want to make it easier for others because you know how hard it is? Come on, queen. An ex-private airport employee called J-Lo a nightmare person on Twitter before dishing out several stories about negative interactions with the superstar. Twitter user @MoiraWebb claimed she worked at a private airport on Long Island when J-Lo was in her relationship with Mark Anthony. They said, I have so many stories about her being a rude and nasty person. It's gross to say, but each time she fails at anything, it delights me. So, okay, that's like really intense hating. Surely J-Lo couldn't be that bad, right? Wrong. Come on, you've been here long enough today. So Webb told 5 stories about brutal interactions with J-Lo, and these range. We're talking like, some were just kind of bizarre, some of them were just plain mean. But it definitely seems like, if you haven't figured it out already, J-Lo doesn't care about people if you're not her. The first story, she's got this standing catering order, even if she's only going like 20 minutes away, and that order needs to have a KFC bucket. So she was flying out in the morning before KFC opened, and her team freaked out that they didn't have the bucket. So this employee was demanded to go get some, was given some cash. They drove like a bat out of hell and begged KFC to open early, make one for her. They were excited it was JLo, they made one. But this worker actually didn't have enough cash. They had to give her a senior citizens discount to cover it. And as they're speeding back, they look up, the flight's taking off. Even though they're like, no, we can't leave without it. So they're like, why did I even have to do that?
Some celebrities just need to treat their employees better. Why? Well, Lady Gaga's former assistant Jennifer O'Neill claimed that she was owed payment for 7,168 hours of overtime, and claimed that she was responsible for ensuring the promptness of a towel following a shower and serving as a personal alarm clock for the singer so she could keep up with her hectic schedule. She also alleged that Gaga expected her to be at her service from the earliest waking hours and wanted her duties to extend to stadiums, private jets, fine hotel suites, yachts, ferries, trains, and tour buses. Now, she also alleged that the schedule meant she was unable to take breaks or even at times sleep. In her testimony though, Gaga said that Jennifer is an effing hood rat who is suing me for money she didn't earn, she said. She thinks she's just like the queen of the universe, and you know what, she didn't want to be a slave to one because in my work and what I do, I'm the queen of the universe every day. Gaga then claimed that her assistant hadn't appreciated the perks of her job, stating she slept in Egyptian cotton sheets every night in 5-star hotels, on private planes, eating caviar, partying with photographer Terry Richardson all night, wearing my clothes, asking YSL to send her free shoes without my permission. It is like such an amazing luxury that I get to travel around the world and have planes, and she doesn't even see what luxury is. Now, in Hollywood, Sharon Stone is known for the terrible ways that she treats her staff. Doctors ordered Angelica Castillo, one of Sharon's former employees, to undertake a brief period of bed rest, but Sharon denied her request and told her that she would have to come into work that day. Then when Angelica mentioned that she was still in pain 4 months later, the actress allegedly called her crazy and stupid. Now, another employee, Erlinda Ellman, who was Sharon's nanny, spoke out about being fired in February 2011 after Sharon reportedly discovered she had wrongly been paid overtime. Erlinda alleged that Sharon made a number of disparaging comments about Filipinos, including calling them stupid people. Sharon shamed Erlinda for frequently attending church and on one occasion forbade her from reading the Bible in her own room. Now, Sharon also ordered her not to speak to her 3 kids because she did not want them to talk like her. Then Holly Ann Hartman was Taryn Manning's assistant as well as her makeup artist. Holly Ann alleged though that she was physically attacked by the star. She even claimed that she'd been choked by Taryn during one particular altercation. Taryn was then ordered to stay away from Holly Ann after the allegations came to light, while the former's attorney said in a statement, they had a late night argument that turned into a bit of a physical altercation. Now, Holly Ann, who had been close friends with Taryn for a number of years before the altercation, made the decision to forgive the actor for the attack, and because of their close relationship, didn't want to see her prosecuted. As a result, Taryn was ordered to carry out just 1 day of community service following the incident, and was told by the judge that she had to stay out of trouble for 6 months to avoid a more severe punishment. But yeah, that doesn't seem too nice to me. Now, Anna Wintour has served as editor-in-chief of Vogue since 1988. She has become an important figure in much of the fashion world, praised for her eye-emerging fashion trends, but there's also another side to her. Her reportedly aloof and demanding personality has earned her the nickname Nuclear Wintour. Now, ever heard of the film The Devil Wears Prada? Yeah, that was based on an assistant's experience with Anna. Miranda Priestley is the main character in the story, and she is a monster to her assistants. Miranda is ruthless, demanding, and doesn't understand that her staff members have lives of their own. Now, she doesn't get close to anybody and expects her assistants to be there for her day and night. Now, interestingly enough, no one in the fashion industry has come out to dispute these claims about Anna, and when asked about the novel, Anna simply stated, "I always enjoy a great piece of fiction." Yikes. Mariah Mariah Carey is known to be a diva, but her former assistant, Yesler Oliver, revealed the full extent of Mariah's controlling behavior when she filed a lawsuit against the singer in 2014. And some of the details will astonish you, they are just crazy. Now, she testified that Mariah had her work 16-hour days, 7 days a week. Not only that, but she wasn't paid any overtime for her efforts and even had to forego meal breaks. She put up with this for 7 years, but eventually quit in March 2007 and decided to get some compensation for her abysmal treatment. Her lawyer explained, "My client put her family's life on hold while tending to Mariah Carey's family, and Mariah repaid her by underpaying her." Now, unfortunately, it's unclear whether or not she actually received any money from the lawsuit, but the treatment was horrible. Katherine Heigl had a fallout with Grey's Anatomy creator Shonda Rhimes, and things got messy, and this is due to how she behaved behind the scenes. Now, Katherine has also been labeled as difficult, as she always has wardrobe issues, doesn't get out of her trailer, and she questions the script every single day. So if she acts that way for the people she works for, you know she acts that way, and even worse, to the people who work for her. According to a source on the set of 27 Dresses, she reportedly refused to film any scenes until her pregnant assistant ran around and got her a Coke Zero. Her pregnant assistant. Now that is just messed up. Now, she also refused to eat lunch next to anyone or have anyone speak to her once the camera stopped rolling. Due to her difficult behavior, she has earned a bad reputation with actors and directors alike, and that's not all surprising. Now, Madonna is awful to her fans out in the open, so it's really no surprise that she's rude to her staff behind closed doors. An anonymous source revealed when one of Madonna's dancers broke her arm during practice, instead of being concerned for the dancer's well-being, Madonna had a meltdown. Another anonymous source said that Madonna does not pay very well, but she knows that the people she hires will work countless hours at less than premium wage just because she is Madonna. They also added that her ego is overinflated and she thinks that her staff are lucky to be in her presence. Now, her former nanny took to Facebook to let everyone know that she was over dealing with the singer's ridiculous demands and that she was quitting. Another former worker has stated that as a person, Madonna is totally overbearing and forces her staff to be available 24/7. Now, to prove how awful she is, in 2009, 5 staff members quit within 7 days. Yep. 5 different employees. 1 chauffeur, 2 nannies, and 2 personal assistants walked out on the star. Now, Madonna always says that she isn't a diva, but after hearing how she treats her staff, I think it's safe to say that she is a diva, and I would just never want to work for her. Lance Armstrong was regarded as a sports icon for winning the Tour de France 7 consecutive times from 1999 to 2005. But for much of the second phase of his career, Lance faced constant allegations of doping, and he denied it. That was until a confession during an interview with Oprah Winfrey in January 2013, when he finally admitted to all of his cheating in sports. But shortly after becoming Lance's personal assistant, Mike Anderson allegedly stumbled upon a box in his bathroom labeled with the name of a banned steroid, and the box soon disappeared. Now, as time went on, Mike started to feel more uncomfortable about things with Lance, as he had always denied he didn't dope. That's when, as Mike describes in a story, Lance fired him. He was asked to sign a non-disclosure agreement, in his words, that would have made me liable for a large sum of money if I ever mentioned ever having worked for Armstrong. Now, he refused, and soon after he faced lawsuits and public scrutiny. Now, this was before the truth came out about Lance's doping, and he was essentially a scapegoat. He was painted by Lance's lawyers as a disgruntled schemer and essentially had to move to New Zealand to pursue his dreams of opening his own bike shop, and they did all of this to just cover up a lie, and it's a real shame. And finally, Harrison Chung was Christian Bale's personal assistant for over a decade, and he wrote the biography Christian Bale: The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. Now, he released lots of shocking information about the star. He said if Christian was away filming on location, I would take care of his 5 pets, along with stray possums in the backyard, as a special request. I'd do anything from sniffing Christian's armpits for BO, right before he hit the red carpet, to making emergency sock runs if Christian was all out of clean ones. Sometimes duties were as exciting as traveling to film festivals, and as dull as watching Christian surf in case something needed to be done on shore. Now, he also said that Christian is often awful when fans approach him, as he'd reportedly lecture little girls about being rude and intrusive until tears streamed down their faces and their parents took them away from our table. Now, Harrison even told the Daily Daily Mail, my therapist would describe my condition as post-traumatic stress disorder, and it really seems like it after having to deal with all that stuff.
Starting us off at number 10 is Jennifer Lopez. I never saw her as the bossy type, and for the most part she's always been praised for kindness throughout her career. But there is one story that has followed her throughout the years, and it's that she gave her new assistant a ridiculous amount of requirements. According to the HuffPost UK, she reportedly banned the staff working at her home from making eye contact with her. I personally think this is ridiculous, not to mention like humanly impossible. But Gawker also reported that she gave these requirements to her new assistant years back. Quote, "The person has to be graceful under pressure, have thick skin, and be resourceful in foreign countries. You'll be on call 24/7. You have to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. You have to know when JLo has her snack time. She won't say she's hungry, and you're expected to have food waiting." So if these crazy claims are true, then basically she's looking for a mom, a cook, and a mind reader who functions on no sleep. Coming up next, number 9 is Mariah Carey. There have been a handful of diva moments reported throughout her singing career, but one of them came from one of her former assistants, Isler Oliver. The story surfaced back in 2014 after she filed a lawsuit against Mariah for her controlling behavior. Some of the details in the case were reported online, and people were shocked to hear some of the ridiculous requirements her assistant claimed she had to follow. She testified that Mariah made her work 16-hour days, 7 days a week, and said that she was not paid overtime for her hours or even her lunch breaks. She was Mariah's assistant for 7 years, but eventually quit in 2007 and decided to get some compensation for her treatment. Her lawyer released a statement saying, "My client put her family's life on hold while tending to Mariah Carey's family, and Mariah repaid her by underpaying her." They ended up settling the lawsuit, but it is still unclear what money she received from that. Moving on to number 8, we have Christian Bale. The actor had the same assistant for over a decade, so people would assume they had a good relationship if they stuck around for that long. His assistant name was Harrison Chung, who ended up writing a biography about his time working for Bale. He described some of the things he had to do for the actor and how he ended up having to see a therapist after. He wrote, "I would do anything from sniffing Christian's armpits for BO right before he hit the red carpet to making emergency sock runs if Christian was all out of clean ones." He spoke with the Daily Mail about his time as an assistant and said that his therapist described his condition as post-traumatic stress disorder. I mean, I personally cannot imagine being a grown man having to go get another grown man a fresh pair of clean socks. And don't even get me started on the whole sniffing the armpits thing. That's disgusting. Although I'd probably sniff Miley Cyrus's armpits. Cruising into number 7 is Lady Gaga, another celebrity who had a lawsuit brought against them by their former assistant. Back in 2013, Lady Gaga's assistant, Jennifer O'Neill, filed a lawsuit for alleged unpaid overtime wages. In court documents that were released online, she said she was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. She also claimed that the two of them had to share a bed when Gaga was touring and that she was never given her own hotel room and privacy. And we all know that Gaga can't afford that. During their time working together, it appeared that they had a good relationship. But once the lawsuit came out, Gaga was caught saying some pretty harsh things about her once assistant. A screenshot showed her saying, "Jennifer is an effing hood rat who is suing me for money she didn't earn." Jennifer sued her for almost $400,000 in overtime pay plus further damages. They were set to go to trial, but then it was announced that the two of them came to a settlement, and then the lawsuit was dismissed. In spot number 6 is Naomi Campbell. Being an assistant to this supermodel would probably seem like a dream job for most people. But throughout her career, there have been incidents that would prove that it is not all glitz and glamour like we would probably think. One of the incidents is still famously known, and it goes back to 2001 when Naomi threw a phone at her assistant. The assistant claimed that she grabbed her by the arms and threw her down on a couch and threw a phone at her. At first, this story might seem like a little too crazy to be true, but this was not the first time violent claims have come out about the model. 1 year before this claim, Naomi actually pleaded guilty to a separate assault charge in relation to beating an assistant. Then, down the road in 2016, she faced more legal action after she allegedly assaulted a former public school boy. He had worked for a PR firm and was drafted onto her team, which clearly did not go too well. So there are multiple reasons why people should not apply to be her assistant anymore. Like, I wouldn't have even applied after I found out about the first thing. Halfway through at number 5 is Courtney Love. The singer had an assistant named Jessica Labrie who ended up suing her for her behavior and missed pay. Some of the claims released in the lawsuit were very shocking that it almost seems too crazy to be true. Like, you just never know if this stuff is made up or not. According to the Rolling Stone, Jessica claimed that Courtney, I quote, acted with an improper and evil motive amounting to malice or despicable conduct. She went on to say that she worked over 60 hours a week without overtime pay and even claimed that she was asked to hire a computer hacker. Reports say that she was forced to send a false legal correspondence at one point. Jessica also said that Courtney had promised to cover her Yale tuition if she signed on to work for her, but then she never paid it. In 2012, she filed for wrongful termination, non-payment, and breach of contract. Her lawsuit was asking for up to $400,000. It wasn't until 2014 that they reached a settlement and both parties filed a motion to dismiss the case. Rolling into spot number 4 is Lindsay Lohan. There was a point in her career when she was being titled the wild child of Hollywood. And during this time, Perez Hilton spilled a story about her and her personal assistant. Perez Hilton is the most famous celebrity news blogger in the world, but oftentimes his stories are up for debate, so we really don't know if this one is true. But according to him, Lindsay once kicked her personal assistant named Gavin Doyle out of a car right after he bailed her out of jail. After Perez spilled the beans, Gawker also added to this story and reported that Lindsay had actually tried to blame a car accident on him earlier that day. She had told the police that he had been driving the car when it crashed, but it was actually her and she was charged with a DUI. So he bailed her out of jail, and then that's what he gets in return. In the 3rd spot is David Beckham. I know us ladies are very upset right now because we thought that he was one of the good guys. Turns out that claims of bad behavior were brought up against him by his former PR assistant Rebecca Luz. But their story is a little confusing because she had also claimed that she had an affair with David while she was taking care of his children. It was back in 2004 when she made headlines after she sold a kiss and tell story to the newspapers and claimed that her relationship with David had become intimate despite the fact that he was still married to Victoria Beckham. She revealed all these juicy details to a British journalist but claimed that she felt used by David and that the relationship made her feel dirty. Beckham denied all these claims, so we're still not sure who to believe on this iconic story, but no other reports have come out that he treated employees badly, so... Taking over the number 2 spot is Sarah Jessica Parker. She seems like a genuine and kind person, but for some reason she comes off as a complete psychopath when it comes to dealing with her staff members. But this is only because an anonymous former assistant came out with claims that Sarah had ridiculous demands when they were her assistant. These are some of the claims that came out. Apparently, she had really strict instructions on how everything in her house is used and presented. Her staff had to refill a 1.75 ounce container of Vaseline with a small spoon or knife for her children to use. The refill jars must not be too big, and the cutlery must be hand washed using a paper towel and then put in the dishwasher. Apparently, her staff members also had to check the levels of her house products daily and only order a new product once it was completely run out. Now, these claims are coming from someone anonymous, so they could be totally untrue. Plus, in 2014, she was a bridesmaid to one of her assistants. So is she really that demanding? I don't know. Earning the number 1 spot is Taryn Manning. This one is by far the worst story I've read about a celebrity and their personal assistant. The Orange is the New Black actress could have ended up behind bars for some of her violent behavior towards an old staff member. She was once facing charges of misdemeanor and assault after punching and choking her personal assistant, Holly Ann Hartman. According to Taryn's lawyer, the two of them had a late night argument that turned into a physical altercation. Apparently, the two of them had been working long hours when the actress attacked her assistant. But her assistant later decided that she would not pursue the case any further, and many people think it was because she too would be at fault since they were both throwing punches. But in the end, Taryn was court ordered to stay away from Holly Ann from that moment on.
Starting off at number 10, we have Lena Dunham. So obviously Lena Dunham was incredibly busy on the set of her show Girls, as she was the creator, writer, director, producer, and she's the star of the show. And I can understand that when you're frazzled like that, you might not be able to schedule breaks to eat. But as a solution to that problem, Lena Dunham makes her assistants feed her. Like, she'll be on set with way too much in her hands, so while she's like reading a script or something, her assistant will be holding the food that Dunham is eating. In one photo of this taking place, Lena is getting fed a quesadilla by her assistant. And for me, that is just so gross on so many levels.
And handheld food is definitely a no-go from me, especially with Corona now. Like, the thought of literally eating food that someone was just touching is absolutely revolting. And at number 9, Paris Hilton. Of course, Paris Hilton just had to be on this list. And even though she befriended one of her old assistants, Kim Kardashian, it didn't stop her from low-key bossing Kim around and even talking smack about her in her confessionals on her reality TV show. But one thing that Kim exposed about Paris is that for some really high-end purses, the ladies would walk around with them totally empty so that they wouldn't ruin the bag at all. But of course, someone has to hold her stuff. And that person would be none other than her assistant. And of course, there are some rare photos showing all the stuff that the assistants are carrying around, while Paris usually has like a purse and a small dog to hold. And at number 8, Mike Myers. Mike Myers is someone who I've talked about before, and apparently his funny personality is not at all what he's like in real life. And he's incredibly rude to practically everyone. So obviously that attitude would translate over to how he treats his assistants. And he not only treats his own assistant badly, but he also is a complete pain in the ass to the PAs on the late night shows that he is on. One incident was when he was on Conan O'Brien's show, and he was seen bossing around the staff of that show, yelling at them to get him seltzer, Twizzlers, and creamer. Which is firstly just super entitled, but secondly, who even asked for like that combination of items? Like, who needs a seltzer and a creamer at the same time? And also the fact that he's bothering PAs who are incredibly busy even without Mike Myers harassing them makes the whole thing just even worse. And at number 7, Amber Heard. I didn't have Amber Heard in my last one, and a ton of you guys wanted to hear about her, so here it is. With the way that she treated her ex-husband Johnny Depp and her other past partners, it's a guarantee that she would be a nightmare to an assistant. And she is. Amber's former assistant Kate James exposed her in a legal deposition that was part of Johnny Depp's defamation lawsuit against her. According to the assistant, Amber would routinely, verbally, and mentally abuse her, usually while Amber was intoxicated with substances like MDMA, mushrooms, and wine, with Kate even saying that she would wake up on edge the morning after Amber's binges because it was common for her to get terrifying texts from Amber in the middle of the night while she was wasted, with Kate going on to say that her time working for Amber is a nightmare that she hopes she's one day able to recover from. And at number 6, Mel B. Apparently the former Spice Girl is a lot spicier than we ever would have thought, and her former assistant completely exposed her for being a shady person. Mel's former assistant was actually a former friend, which makes his treatment even more shocking. The former assistant, Gary Meditayan, filed a lawsuit against Mel after she apparently didn't pay him $200,000 while he worked as her hairstylist and personal assistant. And wow, that is a lot of money. Meditayan was also very close with Mel, but it was at the expense of his own personal life. And because he did literally everything for her, he had basically no life at all. And allegedly he couldn't see his friends or family. He also exposed some pretty dark stuff too, like how Mel at one point was drinking ridiculous amounts, and it caused her to be violent with her own kids. Gary said that at her lowest point, Mel would drink 3 bottles of wine a day and multiple tequila shots, which would make her delusional and paranoid. Halfway number 5, Christina Aguilera. Christina Aguilera definitely is not even close to the worst on this list, but her request might be the most uncomfortable. Apparently when Christina was married to her ex, Jordan Bratman, they were pretty adventurous in the bedroom, and they would role play a lot, with both of them dressing up in costumes. And I truly could not care less what you want to do with your spouse in your own bed. That is nobody's business. But it was the business of her assistant, who apparently was tasked with picking up all of the clothes and costumes off the floor. And I would definitely be using gloves or like a tong if I was forced to pick that up. Yikes, probably both. And at number 4, Khloe Kardashian. Khloe Kardashian had me really fooled. This whole time I thought she was the perfect housewife, with her house on keeping up, always being perfectly cleaned, and with her pantry being essentially a work of art. But apparently that's all a lie. Even the coveted Oreo jar. And her assistant is really the person that makes that all possible. One of her assistants told Radar Online that Khloe didn't lift a finger, and one of the main jobs of her assistant is making sure that the house is spotless at all times, so it looks perfect on camera, even down to having the perfect number of cookies in her cookie jar. And even though this really isn't that insane of a request, I'm mostly just shocked because I really thought Khloe did it all herself. But Khloe definitely did have her diva moments, and allegedly if the food wasn't displayed the way that she wanted, Khloe would dump it upside down and make them do it all over again. And if that's true, that's next level. And at number 3, Ryan Gosling.
Based on the characters that he plays, it would be easy to assume that Ryan Gosling is the perfect guy. He's always playing the charming and handsome guy next door that sweeps you off your feet. But when he isn't acting, he's apparently super strange. And although there's no horror stories of his assistants getting treated horribly, there are some stories that will just make you think twice about what he does behind closed doors. One random fact is that he likes getting waxed. Like, he likes the feeling of getting waxed. And as a person who has waxed my eyebrows for my whole life, I can tell you that hurts. So that is definitely very crazy. Also, one of Ryan Gosling's housekeepers famously claimed that he walks up the stairs on all fours. Okay? And he also sleeps upside down in bed, allegedly, with his head actually at like the foot of the bed. So clearly, he might have some skeletons in his closet, because that's some weird stuff. Like, there's gotta be more. In at number 2, Selena Gomez. Selena is again another celebrity that really isn't that bad, but a former assistant exposed her for being quite the slob, which is a little hard for me to believe honestly because she always seems like so prim and proper, but I guess that is the Disney machine in action. But according to her assistant, she leaves her dishes lying around, and in the assistant's words, she quote, has a lack of respect for other places and can completely trash a hotel room in less than 24 hours. And the worst part for me is that she apparently leaves makeup stains all over her bed and sheets because she doesn't wash her makeup off. And like, how can you be a celebrity and not wash your face? Like, if the whole world is looking at you, that's even more of a reason to make sure you have a really good skincare routine, come on. Hopefully she's learned from then. She'll also leave food wrappers all over the place, she doesn't clean up spills, and she also leaves her undies lying around for her assistant to pick up. So she's either very, very busy or very messy. Maybe a bit of both. And in at number 1, Naomi Campbell. So I didn't know this before doing this video, but apparently Naomi Campbell is a nightmare on set. And there are tons of documented cases of her just being terrible. And that attitude also translated to her assistants, which she treated horribly. And the most famous incident of this terrible treatment was when she threw her phone at one of her assistants, Amanda Brack. And yikes, that is like on another level. Amanda spoke more about everything when she made an appearance on the Tyra Banks show, saying that Naomi attacked her at least 3 times, spat in her face, and even cut up her passport and threw it in a swimming pool. And like, why a person would ever do that is truly beyond me. Like, what? She also spilled the tea on the phone incident, saying that while Naomi was stressed about flights and luggage, she slammed the phone into her face. And Naomi's hairdresser intervened and basically saved Amanda. But that was not her only nightmare interaction with an assistant. Amy Castaldo also speaks of how she was subjected to horrible treatment, and she endured things like headbutting, biting, pulling her to the ground by her hair, and calling her degrading names. And apparently the phone throwing thing is something that she does like pretty often, and she's also hit a former housekeeper in the face with a phone too. And wow, this woman is an absolute nightmare. Starting off at number 10, we have Lance Armstrong. Lance was exposed by his assistant right around the time that he was being exposed for doping, right after he was stripped of 7 Tour de France titles. His assistant decided it was a good time to come clean about everything. And the assistant, Mike Anderson, told Outside Magazine that Lance came back from Europe with cash stuffed into his pants, with the cash being from sleazy races that he did under the table. Also, Lance would apparently do everything possible to not be tested by the World Anti-Doping Agency, and that's why he got away with it for so many years. And apparently while he was at Livestrong events, which were events to support other cancer survivors, he would allegedly talk badly about the event and say things like, quote, "I hate these effing things." Ooh. Lastly, the assistant said he also left his wife in a very, quote, abrupt and cruel fashion, which doesn't say very good things about a person. In at number 9, Whitney Houston. The late singer's assistant, Robin Crawford, exposed Whitney's private life when she told the truth about her and Whitney's relationship. This was all done in the assistant's tell-all book when Crawford exposed that her and Whitney had a romantic relationship. According to the assistant, Whitney was a lesbian and everyone knew it. But again, this is just what the assistant said, not what we're saying is true. Whitney's mother, Chrissy Houston, was against their relationship, saying it was unnatural for 2 women to be that close. Even Whitney's husband at the time, Bobby Brown, did not like Robin Crawford, maybe because he felt that something more was going on. Crawford also said she was the first person to tell Whitney's mom about her drug use that ended up taking Whitney's life. In at number 8, David Hasselhoff. David Hasselhoff was well known back in the day as a classic heartthrob, known for his roles on The Young and the Restless and Baywatch. And he was even so popular that, fun fact, he actually used to hold the record for the most watched man on television, which is crazy. I didn't even know that was a thing. But it seems that his days of being a lady these men are not over. And I don't blame him at all for that, you know, do your thing, Hasselhoff. But the issue here for the assistant is that one of his old assistants exposed that he actually makes the assistant go up to the women he's pursuing and ask them out for Hasselhoff. This is in the form of the assistant giving the women one of Hasselhoff's business cards. And I don't know if that like would impress me. Like someone asking me out on behalf of someone. That could really go like two ways. I don't think I'd like it very much. I'd be like, what do you mean, ask me out yourself, Hasselhoff? I don't know. And at number 7, Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande is known for many things, and one of them is the fact that she's been called a diva by fellow celebrities. One of her diva-esque traits is that she likes to be carried around after a long day of walking. And since she's so small, it's probably not a very difficult task for the right assistant, but it's definitely a strange one. And this rumor got so big that Ariana had to address it, and she ended up confirming it to be true. This was in the form of an Instagram post, where the caption was, quote, "Jones carrying me off stage. Post show ritual when my feet are broken." She also joked about it some more with James Corden in a bit they did where James carried her to a Starbucks while she was ordering her drink. Of course, it was a grande drink. And at number 6, Martha Stewart. Martha Stewart is a very busy and meticulous woman, so obviously she's quite a handful for any assistant, but she knows it and doesn't really care, with Martha admitting in a blog post that she keeps her assistant incredibly busy, with organizing in particular. One task that her assistant had was organizing all of Martha's cosmetics into labeled clear plastic tubs in her basement dressing room. Martha explained it in detail in the blog post, explaining the assistant removes items from the bins and recategorizes every item, reevaluating what is still usable and throwing out expired items. And obviously that entire system seems like a total pain in the ass, especially if Martha makes her do that for all the rooms in the house. But also if you're an assistant for Martha, I mean, you better expect a lot of housework. Like that is one person, I would not be Martha Stewart's assistant because whatever I do would not be good enough. I swear, she can't even have it. I feel like she would have to be her own assistant. She's so like, you know, meticulous about everything. Halfway number 5, Garth Brooks. Country singer Garth Brooks' former assistant, Lisa Sanderson, who worked for him for 20 years, not only exposed the star, but also sued him for close to $500,000. Saying in the suit that he was, quote, paranoid, angry, deceitful, and a vindictive man who will turn against those closest to him on a dime. Yikes, so clearly she's not very fond of him. Apparently the assistant also claimed that she tried to get him a career in TV and movies, but his demands were so insane that it never actually happened. With one example citing how he would refuse to work with anyone because he didn't want to share the limelight with other stars. Even saying that he refused a role in the massive movie Twister because he didn't want to be outshined by the tornado. Brooks' lawyers of course denied these claims, but with accusations as insane as that, I don't know how that could be made up. Like, how can someone make up that he was afraid of being outshined by a tornado? This has gotta be true, right? And at number 4, Robert De Niro. Robert De Niro actually might be one of the worst cases of treating an assistant terribly, as there's proof of it happening. The actor was actually sued for $12 million for gender discrimination by his former assistant, Graham Chase Robinson. The assistant claims that De Niro made abusive and sexist comments to her, and even would initiate unwanted physical contact. And this treatment was not just allegations, there was actual proof of it on a recorded phone call. In one call, De Niro berated her for not answering, and the audio is shocking. The lawsuit also claimed that one of the reasons she was paid so little was because she was a woman, with De Niro telling her that she could get pregnant using sperm from a married male coworker. She also claimed that he would meet her only by wearing bathrobe or pajamas, and then asked her to scratch his back. So much wrong with all of that. And at number 3, David Beckham. This one is a case of an assistant exposing their employer cheating. But in this one, Beckham was allegedly cheating with the assistant. Back in 2004, the assistant, Rebecca Luz, said in an interview that she had an affair with David Beckham. Allegedly, the affair began with flirting and texting and gradually developed into a bond. But after a while, the relationship was purely physical, which made her feel dirty and cheap. Beckham vehemently denied the claims, and clearly Victoria Beckham didn't believe the claims, or they were able to work it through, as the couple is still together and happily married. And at number 2, Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock's personal life is pretty private, so it's hard to know what kind of boss that she would be. But based on accounts from her past assistants, she can be a bit of a nightmare. One strange request is that her assistant must always make sure the curtains in her home are kept closed at all times, Sandra's also known to have a pretty bad temper when things don't go her way, and unfortunately she takes that out on the assistant. According to one witness, while they were standing in line for a coffee, she berated her assistant for being 5 minutes late. And obviously, there's two sides to every story, but based on that, brief description, seems like a bit of an overreaction, if I do say so myself. And at number 1, Taryn Manning. Taryn Manning is another person who was absolutely awful to her assistant, and it was so bad it had to be handled in court. The former assistant Hillian Hartman reported that the actor was physical with her multiple times, and Manning was later ordered to stay away from the assistant after the two had a vicious brawl at the Dream Hotel in New York that left her assistant covered in bruises. According to a lawsuit that was filed, Manning choked and punched her personal assistant and whipped her with a wet towel. She also sprayed Windex in her eyes and mouth. And of course, after doing something like that, you're gonna feel the wrath of the law, as you should. And Manning was charged with misdemeanor assault and choking. Yeah, very, very rightfully so. That is, like, what? I don't even know how a person could do that to another person. I don't understand celebrities. Starting off at number 10, we have Christian Bale. Christian Bale is not an easy person to work with, so obviously he would be an absolute pain in the ass to work for. And after a leaked voice recording showed Bale screaming at his cast on a film, people finally understood how bonkers that he actually is. And his assistant Harrison Chung had such a bad experience working for him that he ended up writing a book about it. The assistant said that Bale would lecture fangirls about bothering him to the point where they started sobbing. And then another time when he received a fan letter, he told Chung the fan should be eliminated with a screwdriver thrust through the eyeball into the brain, which prevents any screaming. That was a quote, by the way, that's literally what he said. And apparently he didn't seem like he was joking either. And his stint working for the actor was so bad, he underwent 5 years of therapy for PTSD to get past the trauma that he put him through. And after hearing this, it makes a lot more sense that he regularly plays dark and twisted people. Might not be acting all that much. In at number 9, Kim Kardashian. After Kim fired her longtime assistant Stephanie Shepard, Stephanie spilled the tea on what we all want to know about working for Kim. At the time, she wrote on Instagram, "Letting go of a bad friend and self-care involves forgiving yourself for your impossible standards and knowing you are worth it." So yikes, clearly she is, talking about a certain somebody. One thing that Stephanie revealed is that Kim apparently takes 1,000 selfies a day. But also, who really is shocked? She also said she is so vain that she has a staff remove plants or objects if they're in the way of a mirror. While on holiday at Punta Mita in Mexico, Kim took 6,000 selfies on her 4-day trip. Kim is also apparently a slob. She would leave clothes everywhere and Stephanie would have to clean them up. Stephanie also said there would be old food in the refrigerator, the trash would be overflowing in the kitchen, and the bathrooms, no one would go in there. On the one hand, that's pretty gross, but Kim is a busy woman, so I can see why she would be kinda messy. That's definitely not the worst thing that she's done. In at number 8, Anna Wintour. After the movie The Devil Wears Prada, Anna Wintour is probably the first person that comes to mind when talking about people who treat their assistants terribly. And Wintour was exposed by her old assistant at Vogue, Lauren Weisberger. And her time there was so bad, she made a tell-all book about it, which was then turned into the movie that we all know and love, The Devil Wears Prada. The book and the movie portrayed the editor-in-chief as pretty much being the worst kind of boss, emotionally abusive, judgmental, and demanding. Anna actually wasn't too upset about the book or the movie, with her even saying in one interview that she's okay with anything that makes the fashion industry more entertaining and glamorous. Basically meaning that she was behind the film. And even though the movie portrays her as having ridiculous demands, it also portrays her as a successful and powerful woman who knows how to get what she wants. And I'm sure Anna Wintour didn't have any problems with that depiction of her. In at number 7, Jessica Simpson. Jessica is another celebrity that's a total nightmare to work for. And over the years, she's gone through tons of personal assistants, which is never a good sign. And most of the assistants hated working for her. So after they quit, they spilled the tea on how terrible she is. One source told the Star that Jessica Simpson would dine and dash, as in she wouldn't pay the bill when she went to a restaurant. With one assistant adding that Jessica thought her stardom was payment enough. And even nastier, apparently Jessica wears a lot of hair extensions, but when she's done using them, she literally just drops them all over the place, with the assistant saying it literally looks like an animal is on the floor. And that one's pretty gross. Does she reuse those? Hopefully not. And at number 6, Courtney Love. Courtney Love is no stranger to controversy, which is clear from the scandal she has gotten into surrounding her late boyfriend Kurt Cobain. And when it comes to assistants, she is just as bad. One of her old assistants actually sued her in 2012 for not paying her, and the payment that she was supposed to make was like really weird, with her getting paid $30 an hour and a full scholarship to Yale. Apparently she was also not only an assistant, but also a forensic research aide, with her even having the opportunity to work on the Nirvana biopic. But the assistant claims that not only did Courtney not pay her, she also made her work overtime, didn't pay her or the scholarship, and even asked her to do illegal tasks like hiring a computer hacker and posing as a lawyer. Another bombshell was when the assistant said that Courtney Love acted with an improper and evil motive amounting to malice or despicable conduct. Not too sure what that's referring to, but it doesn't sound good. Halfway at number 5, Angelina Jolie. Honestly, having Angelina Jolie on this list is not a shocker because she seems like someone who would have some pretty strange demands. One assistant of Angelina's named Anna worked at their country estate in the south of France between 2008 and 2010. And apparently she saw Angelina and Brad fight all the time, and they would spend weeks living apart from each other. She also even said that she thought that Angelina was an alcoholic, with the assistant even claiming that when Angelina got too drunk, she would lock her 6 kids into one room. Anna even sued Angelina and Brad for $88,000 for wrongful termination after she took time off for an illness. Not great, Angelina and Brad. And at number 4, Lady Gaga. A few former assistants have spoken out against their terrible time working for Lady Gaga, with one of her assistants, Jennifer O'Neill, claiming that she was an actual monster. And apparently Gaga owed her roughly $400,000 in unpaid overtime during the 13 months that she worked for her. Apparently Jennifer would do literally everything for Gaga and was on call 24 hours a day. The lawsuit states that her duties included ordering Gaga's meals, making sure her outfits were on hand, the promptness of a towel following a shower, and serving as a personal alarm clock. The assistant Gaga had before that also had a terrible experience, with the assistant claiming that Gaga slept and took showers with her because she didn't like being alone. Honestly, that's what would be the nightmare for me. Like, not the long hours, but the fact that I have to sleep and shower with my boss. Like, I just need my personal space. Too much for that. And at number 3, Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins' personal assistant had a darker experience with him, and based on his public persona, it's something people would never expect. Kimberly Stokes, a former assistant, worked as Tony Robbins' live-in personal assistant and even shared her thoughts in a BuzzFeed article about him. She recalls one time where he walked into her bathroom while she was showering and dropped his towel, exposing himself. This wasn't the only time Robbins made a pass at her either. To make matters worse, Stokes was a survivor of as a child, and Robbins knew that. Another former assistant named Kate said she considered seeing Robbins naked as a part of her job, but also saw his teachings as life transforming. And the fact that multiple people have made accusations against him proves that this is really just like a bigger issue for him altogether. And at number 2, J-Lo. This one is not a shock at all to me, because I've covered tons of times how J-Lo is one of the meanest people ever. And her demands are also the most degrading, with her insisting that her employees don't talk to her or even look at her. One of the job descriptions for her assistant was actually obtained, and it read, must have thick skin, be graceful under pressure, resourceful in foreign countries. They must be on call 24/7, be able to change diapers, work on little sleep, and cook if the butler is away. And if you're J-Lo's personal assistant, you have to know when it's J-Lo's snack time. Even though she won't actually say when she's hungry, like, you just are always expected to have food waiting and know when she wants to eat. And finally, number 1, Mariah Carey. Is anyone surprised that the biggest diva in the entire music industry is on this list? Because I am certainly not. The assistant named Liana was Mariah's assistant for 2 years, until she was wrongfully fired in 2017, which led her to sue Mariah. According to a lawsuit that she filed and a 32-page complaint, she was on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for both Mariah and her former manager. It seems that Mariah's former manager, Stella Stoppler, was a huge part of the problem, and she subjected the assistant to tons of like using racial slurs when talking about her. But there were also completely disgusting things that happened there too. And allegedly Mariah's manager tackled her to the ground and then urinated on her. Liana's lawsuit alleges that Mariah knew about the abuse and was even present for a lot of it, but still allowed it to go on. After she complained, she was fired 1 month later. And this is just so insane and nasty, but also I really don't know why that assistant would want to stay working for someone that would do that to her, right? Like, instead of suing her for wrongful termination, she should probably sue her for like workplace harassment or something instead. So that's all for the list, guys, but let me know what you're thinking about it down below. Which celebrity do you think was the worst, and who did I miss that could be in a part 2? Because I'm sure there is like so many more stories. But before I head out, I'm gonna shout out some comments for my video on Ellen getting backlash. Janine says, never trust a Kardashian Jenner endorsement. They would endorse the coronavirus for the right price. This is literally the best comment I've ever read. Thank you so much for that. Then Cat Charlie said, okay, maybe be kind should stay as a mantra, not a brand. Very, very smart. Like, just make it her little like saying, but don't be branding it. Don't be making it like what you're known for, because, you know, she's not really known for that anymore. Then Diamond Knight said, I think maybe she should have sent I'm sorry cards and gift boxes to the people who suffered working on her show and just be low-key about it. I don't really know, I just think that would have been a better idea over this quick money grab idea. Yeah, I think, you know, getting into a horrific scandal and then like asking people for your money is kind of not like a good 1-2 step situation. Probably needs to be some time in between there where people actually like you, maybe you recover some ratings, maybe you get some good press in the media. Yeah, not a good decision on her team's part.
At number 10, Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey isn't the nicest person ever. We already know this. She's had run-ins with the paparazzi which have not gone over well. She's had some bad relationships with others. She's known for being something of a diva. The theme here is that Mariah doesn't really treat people with the respect that they deserve, and this is probably why she's been sued for this kind of thing before. There was a lawsuit from one of Mariah's former assistants that claimed that the singer peed on her, ridiculed her body, and called her some pretty rude names. Her former assistant said that she was hired by the singer to be on call 24/7 and assisted both Mariah and her manager. Though she was paid a salary of $250,000 a year, this wage couldn't cover up the torment that she sustained from Mariah. But her case wasn't the only one up against the singer at the time. While this case was being disputed, Mariah had just settled one with her former manager, which cited breach of contract, harassment, and unpaid wages. It seems like though she pays her people well, she doesn't treat them as well as she should. Many other employees have had similar horror stories, which just shows that maybe working for the Queen of Christmas isn't as holly jolly as you might think.
And at number 9, Christian Bale. Christian Bale is definitely the person I would want to work for the least, because he uses intimidation and threats of physical harm towards his assistants. One of his former assistants had such a bad experience working for the star, he actually wrote a whole book exposing him. The book's called Christian Bale, The Inside Story of the Darkest Batman. It was an inside look into the negative experiences the assistant witnessed while working for him. Apparently one time fans approached Bale for an autograph, but they ended up running away crying because of how mean he was. Another time Bale got fan mail sent to his home, and Bale told the assistant that the fan should be quote eliminated, adding quote a screwdriver thrust through the eyeball into the brain prevents any screaming. Let me know how it goes. Things were so bad the assistant was diagnosed with PTSD afterwards.
At number 8, Naomi Campbell. Supermodel Naomi Campbell has been in the fashion industry for over 30 years. Over this time, she's had her fair share of scandals and feuds which have painted Naomi as the industry's mean girl. She's known for having had violent outbursts, and Naomi has been accused of being violent on 11 occasions and has been convicted of harming others 4 times. Some of the reported violent incidents include the model physically harming her assistant, grabbing her by the throat and beating her with a phone, harming another assistant and allegedly holding her hostage, throwing her phone at a housekeeper, and other accounts of emotional and physical distress. Out of these incidents, the model has been sued on multiple occasions, and they all mostly just settled out of court, but she was required to take an anger management class on top of all of her payouts. There's been some things that have been covered up, but luckily these days Naomi doesn't seem to be harming others like she used to and has moved on from this dark time.
And at number 7, Kim Kardashian. Kim Kardashian was sued by 7 former staff members in May of this year. The employees claimed that they were not paid enough or given breaks while employed at her California home. The lawsuit claimed that the staff never received pay stubs and weren't paid on a regular basis. They also were not given any breaks for meals or rest, and they weren't paid for all the hours they worked, along with other issues regarding compensation. But Kim claimed this was not true and that she was not responsible for paying these employees. Apparently they worked for another company and were paid through this third party. Kim's spokesperson said, quote, Kim is not party to the agreement made between the vendor and their workers. Therefore, she's not responsible for how the vendor manages their business.
At number 6, Marilyn Manson. This year, a lot of dark information came out about singer Marilyn Manson. Multiple women came forward recounting their awful experiences with Manson, saying that the singer had harmed them severely. Some celebrities were part of the group of people who spoke out against the singer, but on top of that, one of Marilyn's Stone's assistant has also spoken out against the singer and even filed a lawsuit against him for having endured so much while working for him. The singer's assistant claimed that he had tried to kiss her, touch her inappropriately, and even made her work 48 hours straight. It was also claimed that Manson lured his assistant into working for him with promises of, quote, artistic collaborations and creative opportunities, end quote. The assistant said that she lived in constant fear of one of his violent outbursts, and she said that she felt used, comparing herself to a piece of meat. To think that any of this happened to the people affected by Manson's actions is absolutely heartbreaking, and justice needs to be served.
Halfway number 5, Sharon Stone. Stone was sued by her former nanny after that nanny accused her of violating labor laws. The nanny also claimed that Stone made derogatory comments about her ethnicity. The nanny is of Filipino heritage and claims she was, quote, repeatedly subjected to numerous derogatory comments and slurs by Stone related to her Filipino ethnicity and heritage, mainly during her last 6 months of employment. These comments were allegedly relating to the nanny's accent. Apparently, the nanny was told not to speak so Stone's kids would not develop an accent like hers. Stone denied the claims and said it was, quote, an absurd lawsuit with made-up and fabricated claims filed by a disgruntled ex-employee who's obviously looking to get money any way she can. But only 1 year after this suit, Stone was sued by another employee, her then maid Angelica Castillo, for, quote, wrongful termination.
At number 4, Lady Gaga. Lady Gaga is one of the most famous singers out there, so you know that she makes a lot of money, but even with all of her riches, apparently she wanted to keep a lot of it for herself and not pay her staff. Back in 2011, Gaga was sued by a former assistant who claimed that the singer had cheated her out of her overtime wages when she worked alongside the singer for 13 months from 2009 to February 2010. According to the assistant, they were supposed to earn a flat rate of $50,000 annually in the first year, and in the second year of working for the singer, that rate was bumped up to 75 grand. It's still a good paycheck, but the assistant claimed that she never got her bonus overtime pay despite the fact that she had to work and be on call 24/7. Though the case was supposed to go to trial in 2013, they ended up coming to a settlement agreement before they ever entered the courtroom.
And at number 3, Celine Dion. In 2012, Celine and her late husband were sued by their former handyman, Keith Sturdivant, for unpaid wages. This handyman worked at their Florida compound and performed duties like cleaning shutters, repairing appliances, and running errands. The lawsuit goes on to allege that Dion improperly and illegally designed Sturdivant as an exempt employee, which allowed them to avoid paying him overtime, which he is rightfully owed. Because of this, he is suing for unpaid back wages that he was entitled to during employment. At the time, he said others were also not paid what they were owed, so it wasn't clear if other people might be joining him in the suit. The suit was later settled for an undisclosed amount.
At number 2, Courtney Love. In 2012, Courtney Love got into some serious drama with one of her former assistants, and it got pretty ugly. Courtney's former assistant filed a lawsuit against the singer seeking wages, expenses, and punitive damages for, quote, wrongful firing, wage and overtime violations, false promise, breach of contract, negligent and intentional misrepresentation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The assistant had nothing but negative reviews for having worked for Courtney, and she was prepared to tell the whole world about it as she was planning to publish an expose about her time with Courtney. In a copy of the book Proposal, this expose promised all kinds of inside knowledge about the celebrity, including details about how she is a, quote, alleged hoarder, media manipulator, and drug user, end quote. Nothing ever came of this book, I don't think, and I'm not quite sure what happened with the rest of the case, but I for one would have loved to know what this assistant had to say, because I have a feeling it would have been very juicy.
And finally at number 1, Charlie Sheen. Back in 2015, Charlie Sheen was sued for $1 million by a former staff member named Keith Fitzgerald. When Fitzgerald was originally hired in 2013, he was offered a 3-year contract with a salary of $300,000, medical benefits, and 20% incentive bonus as well. He was supposed to work for 3 years but was fired after only 5 months. Because of this inconsistency, the staff member sued for premature termination. Allegedly, Sheen didn't pay for any of his work either. The lawsuit said in part, quote, Fitzgerald's employment relationship was prematurely terminated after approximately 5 months without any explanation. Fitzgerald received no compensation whatsoever for any of the services he performed for Charlie Sheen at any time whatsoever. Sheen denied the claims and called the whole thing bogus, but the suit was later settled for an undisclosed amount.